Had a rumor that you are searching for the station to give you joy, laughter, and happiness. I had a rumor that the station you're searching for is right here. I mean, here. 98.3 Mainland FM. The sound of Lagos.
It's time for Political Roundtable Mainland 98.3 FM. This is the show where we look at the major issues in the political space. And today, we just have one agenda on the table, just one issue to discuss this evening. Of course, the president has addressed the nation. It was quite an interesting address. Of course, as a result of the protest, the nationwide protest, the president today, exactly 7 o'clock in the morning, addressed the nation. It was a 28 paragraph address and lasted for 21 minutes exactly. Quite a whole lot was said by the president. And of course, there have been a lot of reactions to the address of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to the nation, of course, on the backdrop of the hashtag End Bad Government protests. In the country, End Bad Governance in Nigeria protest in the country. And that's going to be the only thing we will be discussing on the roundtable this evening. The president simply said, I have heard you loud and clear. That's President Tinubu telling the hashtag End Bad Governance in Nigeria protesters, and he has called for dialogue. We also have a summary of what the president said for the 21 minutes. I think there's hardly any Nigerian that did not really tune in to listen to the president, whether on radio.
I didn't tune in.
Okay, but at least you later read what he said. But so that we don't bore ourselves really with the details of what the president said, what you're going to do, I actually summarized the key points that were addressed by the president today. So that's going to be the major issue. Today we are going to have a special edition. It's going to be a special edition because this is going to be an extended, there's going to be an extension of the show for almost an hour to really dissect these issues. Again, we are talking about the issue of hunger in the land. We are talking about the issue of hardship in the land. There are issues. Again, the reason why we're extending this show today is for us to have a clear perspective, dissect the issues, have what I call constructive engagement as far as nation building is concerned. So everything will be brought on the table this evening. Barrister Curtis Adigba already seated in the studio. Nice to have you in the studio this evening, Barrister Curtis Adigba.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we also have Olalekan Oni in the studio. He's a public affairs analyst, and he has also volunteered to join us on the show this evening. Nice to have you, Mr. Olalekan Oni, in the studio.
Good evening. I'm pleased to be here once again.
All right, because of time, we're just going to go straight to the issue because we're going to have a break basically to listen to a voiced recording of what President Bola Ahmed Tinubu said sometimes in 2012. When we get to that point, you know what exactly you'll be listening to, but it's going to take us almost 30 minutes to listen to that voiced recording. Again, the reason why we're extending the show for 1 hour today. But so it means that we're going to have a break. Just get your coffee ready, maybe get some popcorn to enjoy what we're going to be doing on the show this evening. Of course, we're streaming the show live on Facebook and YouTube. You can also tell whoever is not in Lagos or some parts of the country, to also listen via the Radio Garden app. So, they don't miss out on what we're going to be discussing on the roundtable this evening. Of course, the show will be interactive, so we're still going to open the phone lines to get your calls and contribution. But again, be on notice that the show is going to be extended for 1 hour today. A lot that we're going to be talking about, so just bear with us. Well, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has called for dialogue and an immediate end to the nationwide protests that have rocked the nation since Thursday. Tinubu said his administration is ready to listen to and address the concerns of protesters, affirmed that he has heard their calls loud and clear. I hereby enjoin protesters and the organizers to suspend any further protest and create room for dialogue, which I have always acceded to at the slightest opportunity. He affirmed in the nationwide broadcast on Sunday morning on the End Bad Governance protest. Again, let's quickly summarize before I allow Barrister Curtis and Mr. Olalekon to join the conversation. I've been able to put maybe about 11 things, high points of the president's speech today. First, he acknowledged the turmoil and violent protest, expressing a heavy heart and sense of responsibility. So again, the fact that, look, some of these protesters are turned violent, that become problematic in some places. So the president acknowledged that, it has become a bit problematic in some parts of the country as far as the protest is concerned. He also commiserated with the families of those who lost their lives during the protest. He called for an end to further bloodshed, violence, and destruction. He enjoined protesters to suspend further protests and create room for dialogue. Warned those taking advantage of the situation to threaten any section of the country that the law will catch up on them. Of course, addressing the concerns that this had become tribal and there have been threats issued a particular tribe. People taking advantage of the protest to issue threats to a particular tribe. And of course, what he said was that the long arm of the law will catch up with people like that who are threatening other tribes. Again, alluding to the fact that, look, this should not be an ethnic or tribal conversation. We are all Nigerians. That's what the president seems to be affirming with that one. And then he reiterated his vision for a just and prosperous Nigeria where every person can enjoy peace, freedom, and meaningful livelihood. He also highlighted the progress made in rebuilding the foundation of the economy, including key issues here. Increased government revenues. He talked about that too. Reduced debt servicing from 97% to 68%. Cleared outstanding foreign exchange obligations, all of the monies we are owing some of our foreign partners. He said, look, a lot of these outstandings have been cleared. Increased financial freedom for state and local governments. Embarked on major infrastructure. Of course, the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway and the Badagry-Sokoto Road was also mentioned. And the fact that more projects are going to be embarked upon. He also announced initiatives to empower youths, including these initiatives now, talking about the youth. The student loan scheme, consumer credit corporation, digital and creative enterprise program, skilled up artisans program, the National Youth Academy, and then, of course, the National Youth Talent Export Program, NATEP. He also discussed efforts to stimulate economic growth, talking about micro and small business loans, nano grants for nano businesses, support to farmers to increase food production, removal of tariff and import duties on essential items. And then, of course, he also emphasized the importance of working together to build a brighter future for Nigeria, while also concluding by urging security operatives to maintain peace and order while respecting human rights. So, summary of the entire broadcast of the president to Nigerians today. Barrister Curtis, I'm going to start with you. Again, we just have to do that summary so that we don't read, because there's a lot to discuss, really. The demands of the protesters, I've decided to pitch this against what the president addressed today. Again, quite a number of demands, because there were too many groups really bringing up too many demands. But again, we could aggregate some of the demands that came across from all of the groups that eventually posted one or two demands. There were some form of convergence on some of the demands of the protesters. One of them was the reversal of the subsidy removal decision of the government. The second one addressed specific issues of hunger and food inflation. One of the demands, reverse subsidy removal, 1. 2, address specific issues of hunger and food inflation. Number 3, tackle insecurity with clear workable ideas. Of course, the issues, kidnapping, banditry, one of the demands was that the president should come up with a workable template with clear timelines as to how to tackle the widespread insecurity in the country. Also, reduce the cost of governance and wasteful spendings was also part of the demand of the protesters. And then they talked about his cabinet. Some of the demands we also saw, which came across from all of the protesters, was that, look, reduce your ministers from 47 to about 25, really. They also talked about, look, when are you going to implement the Oronsoye report, which also talked specifically about reducing the cost of governance. He also talked about end fuel importation, get our refineries back to life. They are expecting the president to talk about how to end the importation of refined petroleum products into the country and also address specific issues as to how to refine petroleum products locally in the country. And then, of course, they also talked about electoral and constitutional reforms, specifically asking for the president to implement the Justice Muhammad Uwais electoral reforms report. So these were some of the things I've been able to aggregate as to the demands of the protesters. Again, we've put it side by side, what the president has said as against what the protesters are demanding for. But Mr. Curtis, how well did you think the president addressed the issues raised by these protesters?
All right. Thank you so much for having me. I think this is quite a sober moment for all of us in the country. And so I will be very measured in how I speak here tonight. First of all, there is no speech, no one speech that can capture the imagination of all the listeners. So speeches are basically the priorities of the giver. And they are based on the preference and the perception and the understanding of the issues the giver of the speech feels, or understands. So when I didn't listen to the speech, and somehow I knew that the speech was not going to address the key issues, because these issues are not seen as any problem at all by those in power. Mm-hmm. And not only Mr. President, even the governors and ministers don't see these issues, as problem. And then this is typical of African leadership. You saw what happened in Kenya. This was the way President Ruto went first, threatening the people, and all that, until things got out of hand. But let me again thank Mr. President for finding the time out of his very busy, extremely busy schedule to talk to us, his fellow citizens. We appreciate, because we know that of all the important things pressing him for time, he found the time, at least 22 minutes. 23 minutes to speak to ordinary citizens.
Okay, you said 20. I got 21 minutes.
I got 23.
Okay, all right.
To speak to ordinary citizens.
Which is huge, really. If you look at how busy presidents are.
As a speechwriter myself, I know what must have gone into that speech.
Yes.
The divergent view and feelings of those around him.
The writing, editing, and editing.
Those who felt that he should not betray any sign of weakness at all.
Yeah. Show courage.
Because he's an imperial president. How dare these minions challenge your authority? And those who felt that it should be a bit conciliatory by addressing the concerns of the people. And you saw that. You saw Mr. President's struggle in trying to balance the
strike a balance,
two emotions. So first of all, he started by showing a lot of empathy to those who, the victims,
lost their lives, properties,
and all that. But then that only lasted for 4 paragraphs. And the speech had 38
out of
paragraphs.
20, yes.
38 paragraphs.
Paragraph 38, yes.
Yes. And I want to read the 5th paragraph, what he said.
All right.
As president of this country, of course, we know, I must ensure public order in line with my constitutional oath to protect the lives and property of every citizen. Our government will not stand idly by and allow a few with a clear political agenda to tear this nation apart. And again, you see, this is the cankerworm in the brains of African leaders. The fact that they cannot see beyond political opposition when issues of governance is concerned. First and foremost, this president was in opposition for a very long time.
Yes.
So this whole idea that once you have lost election anytime in the country, you have no place in your country anymore is a phony idea. Number two, the thinking that only the opposition can identify issues of pains and suffering
And then mobilize people.
and mobilize people. Just because the opposition say there is pain in the land, everybody then follows like sheep. No. If there is no pain in the land, if people are not suffering, if hardship has not become the default mode, the default living conditions of the people, there's no opposition figure that can get up and mobilize the number of people that we saw on the street last week. You get my point?
I'm with you, bro.
So this whole idea, instead of addressing the issue, that the policies he introduced, and he first of all admitted that, of course, that the Nigerian economy for decades has been anemic. For decades, and I'm happy he said decades. He didn't say the last few years.
Yes.
Because he's also played a central role in the governance of this country at different level in the last 25 years. So he said it has been anemic. And I agreed with him, at least from the data and the figures that we have seen constantly.
Yes.
But however, the question that Nigerians are asking, what has he done to show that this economy is indeed anemic? It has not changed the consumption culture of those in power. An anemic economy coughed out almost 200 billion to buy brand new vehicles for government officials. An anemic economy coughed out 21 billion to renovate the residence of the vice president. An anemic economy coughed out almost 150 billion to buy a new aircraft. That same economy bought a yacht. That same economy is facing the worst form of corruption. And then we are told that the people have no right to complain. Though the president referred to the fact that the constitution allows Nigerians certain privileges, but he then took away that privilege or right when he said the security guys have been given the free will to go out and ensure that lives and property are protected. And then he never mentioned the fact that without provocation from the same set of people, they went attacking. Because if you look at most of the protests around the country, they were not violent until the police guys or the security guys went there and started throwing tear gas. Because according to them, for like the group in Abuja, they said they got a court order restricting them to the stadium alone. And so anybody that was seen outside of a stadium
was violating the court
even
order.
if they were peaceful. But again, you know what? The same government bossed some individuals,
To you know,
gave them placards with.
they were well arranged, really. Came in beautiful buses.
No protest, no this, no to protest.
No to
and all that.
protest, yes.
But
No to protest protesters.
Yes, but ironically, the same people were telegraphing the message of the protesters that were anti-government.
Yes.
Because they were saying, oh, one of them said, I've not eaten for 3 days, so hunger wants to kill me. Here.
The irony was, this was a no to protest protester.
Yes.
Who was now saying what the protesters were saying.
We're saying.
And then one of them asked him, what are you saying, Oga?
And they had to push him
And they push him aside. So hunger knows no inducement.
So the speech of the president failed. Like I said, no one speech can capture everybody's imagination.
But the key issues.
But I think this was a low-hanging fruit for Mr. President to have touched. Should have condemned the violence on both sides, especially the one that was meted on the people by the security and those who were killed. The president should have touched on the basic demands of the people.
Yeah.
Rather, he went on to reel out his achievements, achievements that were known to the people
Already.
before the
That are not solved their problem.
Achievement that did not touch them anyway. You see, this is an elitist government, and you see, when you have a government that is elitist in pursuit and in nature, they don't understand where the pains are. You know, number one problem in our country today is hunger. Basic food to eat. And I'm surprised that the president and his handlers don't see this as a problem. What they have done in other countries is that they give them food stamps. There are soup kitchens where you can go at least have a meal a day.
Like Lagos State government did.
Okay.
I don't think they've implemented. He wanted to do it. I don't think there's any soup kitchen anymore.
Now,
but he announced it. The governor announced that I was going to do that.
So these are basic areas where, some people get food stamps. And they can just go to grocery shops, buy whatever they want to buy with the amount they have, the stamp, and then the government will pay for it because, it's government enabled.
Yeah.
And then soup kitchen, and then, so you just have to handle hunger first. What the president is talking about, what does a billion mean to a man who has not eaten for 3 days? You say you are going to give 1 billion to 75 people. You are going to give student loan to some individuals. This is a government that is anemic, right? The economy is anemic. But this economy, I think about 90 billion for Hajj operations.
Yeah, subsidy, yeah.
For Hajj operations. Subsidy. Now, the president boasted about the fact that his policies have yielded so much money for the government.
More revenue to government.
Government.
He's also talked about that.
But we cannot see the connection between more revenue and the suffering of the people. In other words, more revenue has not translated
to better living,
to any form of prosperity or better living for the people. That means something is wrong somewhere. And we have always known that in this country, not only with President Tinubu, every president that has come in this country has told us one thing: I am implementing these difficult economic policies because I want to secure the future. I want to ensure that this
better tomorrow.
Better tomorrow. But the better tomorrow has never come. The only people that have enjoyed better tomorrow are those in power at any point in time. Do you understand? And this is why it is difficult. So I felt that, yes, he tried from the beginning to sound reconciliatory, to try and reach out and then assuage feelings. But then the real feeling of Mr. President took charge of him from the fifth paragraph. When he went, saying that he has a duty to protect law and order, to ensure that, because, we know that people are being killed daily in this country. That's also part of his constitutional duty. And he's not been talking about that. But now that there's a protest, that becomes a focal point for his speech. That's fine. Then, I think that if the president would take a second look at the speech, the things that people complain about, like the cost of governance, I saw a placard that said, let's make the National Assembly a part-time assembly.
Assembly, yeah.
And then you heard someone like the president of the Senate. He has not come out to deny it. Like I wrote somewhere, he needs to learn a lesson in comportment from the speaker.
Probably right.
Yes, the speaker is younger than him, but the speaker has shown more maturity in dealing with national issues. The president of the Senate sees governance as a joke, a place to just go and enjoy and
laugh
and banter, not anything. So I want to thank Mr. President at least for speaking. What we heard before was that he didn't think there was enough issue for him to complain. But I thought that this was an opportunity for him to have nipped in the bud further protests. But what I see him doing here is that this speech is going to inflame more tension, because people looking at it will feel that he didn't take the matter seriously at all, that he came out to warn them and all that. And then I think that from tomorrow they're still going to be on the street.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Barrister Curtis Adiba. Mr. Olalekoni, you've listened to Barrister, and I've tried to, side by side, put a summary of the address of the president to the nation this morning, side by side with the demands of some of the protesters. Like I said, we had too many demands, really. I had to really just aggregate and see where I could draw some convergence at the end of the day. And again, some of the demands: reversal of subsidy, removal, address specific issues of hunger and food inflation, tackle insecurity with clear and workable ideas, kidnapping, banditry issues, reduce the cost of governance and wasteful spendings. Of course, some of them demanded for when the Oronsoye report will be implemented, and also demanding specifically the reduction in the cabinet size from what we have now to maybe around 25. Like Barrister also added, there were also demands as to this bicameral legislature. Some of them talked about part-time.
You cannot reduce the cabinet to 25
because of the constitution that says 36.
That at least
states will at least produce. But again, some of the demands.
So 37.
Yes, but again, end fuel importation to get the refineries back working, and then give clear timelines, reduce the number of ministers and what have you, implement Justice Momodu Ways report. But again, we also talked about what the president said. Were you convinced that, to a great extent, what do you make of the address? Let's start with that. The fact that the president eventually addressed the nation as demanded for by some of the protesters, and some of the key things he said. Do you think, to a great extent, he was able to address some of the concerns and the demands of the protesters, or are there missing links really that should be filled?
Well, I wasn't disappointed by
his address,
by his speech. I was somewhere yesterday, and we were still talking about this, that the president should address. Then I asked a sincere question, and I was very sincere about it. And my question was that the president won't say anything new. Just like Barrister Curtis said, there were people, in fact, there were many people around the president who do not even believe that the president should say anything. They just felt that there is no reason. In fact, many of the aides, they just believe that there is nothing.
There was nothing buggery, nothing serious.
The president would say that is not in the public domain already. And if you look at what the president said, most of all of these things, just like Barrister Curtis said, that he just came to reel out his achievements. And most of these things were already in the public domain, even before the president said it today. So, and somebody asked that, people were like agitating, probably will reverse the policy of the stoppage of the fuel subsidy payment. And I said that this president will not reverse that policy.
That policy, yeah.
He won't reverse it. He came on and said that he gave reasons why the subsidy has to continue, and then alternative to fuel, to petrol, to PMS and all of that. That's why he talked about the CNG and all of that. So having all of this, in fact, you'll be surprised that some of the demands of the protesters you just read out now, I'm just hearing them for the first time, because most of the demands have been seen were frivolous as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
The least in Nnamdi Kanu, there's some groups.
I told you too many. I had to maybe say take.
Yes, just like say aggregate. And some of these demands I've seen where some groups said that the 1999 constitution should be scrapped. I've seen where some said that the minimum wage should go to 250,000 naira, and many more, and then reverse the fuel subsidy and many more. But from what you read today, I think that in fact, the ones you read today, for me, are genuine demands. For example, reduce the cost of governance. And if you look at this, by the time, if you are able to reduce the cost of governance, although there is a system in place whereby there should be patronage, when you talk about reduce the cost of governance, there are some section of Nigeria who believe that all of these things, cost of governance, comes through appointments and all of that, when it comes to executive and all of that. And if you look at it, a lot of people, after elections, the expectations are very high, even till now. Even now that you have...
Expectations, political class or the ordinary people?
Political
class.
Political class.
Okay, all right.
And if you look at this political class, all of these things flows down. It flows down. You will have seen an SSA to the president having SA, having a PA, having a HE,
and an
LA, and so on and so forth. And when you look at all of these appointments, it comes to the fact that it is government spending. There's a good example about this cost of governance. When Sanwo-Olu came in for second term, he said that if you're appointed as a commissioner in Lagos State, all you need to do is that when you get to your ministry, just pick a career officer to be your PA or whatever age that you need. A civil servant who is already in the ministry.
Yes.
Man, this thing went balloon. People were complaining that, so after people have worked, now you have a commissioner, you want to have a cabinet, and then at the end of the day, you are telling us that a commissioner or an SA will not be able to appoint PA from the political class. So if you join all of these things together, there's so much pressure on all of these people. It is not an excuse. So that's why I said that some of these demands are very, very genuine. I don't know how we are going to be able to scrap having a Senate. I don't know how possible is that. But if you look at some of all of these things, they are not something that the president can't even come up and say that.
Okay, but let's look at the ones that the president can directly address.
Look, I think that this is a difficult thing for anyone.
Yes.
But when you have a reputation for being a strategic thinker and as someone who can get things done by negotiating or crossing the eye, like the president has had all the years, it shouldn't be something very difficult for him to do.
Yeah.
On the issue of subsidy
removal, reversing it. Yeah.
I think that if this president want to square up with Nigerians, he would have said, what are you guys even talking about the subsidy? There's no total subsidy remover.
Yes, sir.
If I had removed all the total subsidy remover,
you'll be paying 1,200 per liter.
But again,
he could have said
the information, even as at today, from the government,
they don't want you to know that they are paying.
That's a problem in itself.
I'm going see. That's where the Minister of Planning came up.
Budget and National Planning. Yes.
Was it yesterday?
Yeah, it was on yesterday. It was on TV yesterday. Bagudu, yes.
And he said that what he did was that he dodged
that
question, and he was able to manipulate his way around it. I said,
is that manipulation? Don't you think that is even causing problem to the president?
This is the biggest problem we have in the country, whereby the National Assembly that should provide oversight functions
on these things and get them very clear to the people. Yes,
because this is what you need in the public hearing.
Yes.
Do we still have subsidy or not?
Yes.
And disclose to Nigerians the exact situation with the
subsidy.
Because what you have now is opaque budgeting.
It's opaque.
And that gives room for corruption. Because if Nigerians don't know
how much we are spending or whether there is subsidy or not, then it becomes a problem.
So look at Atiku Bagudu.
Atiku Bagudu, yes.
That's why I said that if you look at it, the question, he was supposed to answer straight. He now went around and said that he cannot answer.
So can you blame people who are saying that the government has not really been too transparent with the people?
Yes. Especially in that subsidy area. You know. So, and what is bad, just like you have said, see, if we say we should remove subsidy totally, you can't. I told somebody, I said, you can't pay for it. And he said, what would I mean? I said, that's the truth. The landing cost is now like around
1,115, 117. That's what the independent market
so it means that if you're adding 13 at least, let's say profit.
Yes.
Maybe 30, or let's say say 10 naira.
Yes.
So that means we'll be paying 1,180. Nigeria will just shut down.
But what I'm saying is that from the government circle, even from the NNPCL as we speak today, the same statement keeps coming out to the people. Subsidy is gone. We are no more paying subsidy.
But if you read Atiku Bagudu yesterday, you will find out that there is subsidy.
No, can the government be transparent and open about it?
And again, even though the president didn't admit it, officially, in the course of negotiation with Labour,
he talked about it.
He told them,
that
I will pay you 250, but I have to take out all the subsidy on petrol.
But he didn't say subsidy.
No, he said, look, we will increase the price of fuel.
Ajaero said it now.
And then pay you
250
if that's what you want.
Ajaero said it now.
Okay, but Sir Curtis again, because there's a lot that we're going to talk about on this issue of subsidy, really. Because all of the controversies around subsidy payment, removal of subsidy,
let me say something.
Yes.
I think that by our framing and interpretation and the toxic attitude of government in Nigeria, we have come to identify subsidy as a dirty word. There's nothing wrong with subsidy.
Yes.
All over the world, countries subsidize certain things for their people.
Yes.
In the United States, like we said, the US is still paying subsidy of $1 billion a day for gas.
For their citizens.
Yes. The US is subsidizing the agricultural sector heavily in order to be able to compete with China.
Yes. I know.
Do you understand?
Yes.
The US imposes higher taxes on the super wealthy, and then they take from them and distribute to the poor. Social Security, Medicare, and so many other
things.
So this whole idea that African leaders are made to believe that unless you cut subsidy completely to your people, your economy cannot do well. It's not true. Because they are providing subsidy for their own people. Now, how did we come to believe that subsidy is our problem and not the stealing of government funds as well as the over-bloated expenditure for running government?
Running government, yes.
That's a bigger problem
than even subsidy.
Than subsidy.
Yes.
Even the administration of the subsidy itself is immensely corrupt. Look, go and take a look at the Ike Mokode committee report. They bring air into the country as petrol.
Yes.
And collect money.
And collect money. And the vessel goes back.
The ship comes into Nigeria.
And then goes diverted to neighboring countries.
Yes.
Terrible.
Now, these issues were not addressed in the president's speech. Because these are some of the consecutive factors.
No, in fact, the major one.
Yes. Rather, he said he was still praising the fact that he had removed subsidy that
more revenue
completely out, and that more revenue has come in, and that. But the question is, what has been the living conditions of the people
after removing subsidy?
After the removal of subsidy.
And what has the government been able to do?
From the day he came into government.
Yes, I even think that that's been pushed to the governors. That's where he says that we have pushed 570 billion so far to your governors for living conditions
to improve at the state level, subnational level. But Bola Lekoni, people have said that, look, we've talked about how meticulous, how strategic, how clever the president is. In fact, I think there's no way we're going to argue the fact that, look, from 1999 till date, he's been actively involved in governance at different levels. Yes. At least in Lagos, after his tenure for 8 years, he's singularly produced governors after governors. And so people felt that, look, after his tenure, at least after that, he's been producing governors. Up to
Lagos,
today,
Ogun State,
and some other states. So what people are saying is that, look, when he took out subsidy the way he took that subsidy out, and the aggressive revenue drive that followed, all manner of taxes, the floating of the naira, all of the bid to raise more money to run the government. Was it thinking that he had angels at the subnational level? Shouldn't the president have been wiser to know that, look, I'm going to raise all of these monies, but who am I going to give him the monies to? As governors?
Sorry, even before my brother will answer.
Yes.
Let's not hold the president responsible for what the governors are doing.
Yes.
Let's hold him responsible for what the federal government is doing. And the question is, how well?
If as the federal government performed.
Has he applied the increased resources
at the federal level? Because again, there's a lot of narrative out there that, look, the subnationals are not pulling their weight, they are not doing enough. Ask your governors, they've been getting money. But I think that apart from what Barrister Cox have just said as to even the one that is domiciled at the federal level, how well have they spent it?
How many trailers of hope has his own pushed?
So the question, so if I take it back to,
is a trailer.
So do you think the president could have been more methodical about the issue of subsidy removal? I'll read this to you, Olalekoni, before you answer. Again, we're going to get to a point where we're going to listen to a recorded audio of an article written by the president in 2012,
where he himself called for
phasing out of the subsidy gradually. But again, I decided how we're going to read it. It's a very long audio.
Times have changed.
You don't know I'm coming. What has changed, we would have to address it this evening. And the reason why we're going to take this long, about 30 minutes to listen to that article, voiced, Sandra actually volunteered to help us voice that out so that we can get all of the issues, get it clearly, so that we are not accused of quoting the president out of context. It was an article written by the president himself titled "Removal of Oil Subsidy. President Jonathan breaks social contract with the people."
I read it.
It was published by the Nation newspaper, by PM News, and several other media outlets. And I don't think anybody in the government circle, especially of this president, has ever denied that it was the president that wrote that article. Again, there are no facts to show, fact-checking to show that even the Nation newspaper published that same article. Again, if you're listening to us, get your popcorn, get a glass of water, a glass of wine to enjoy that. The president's own.
Why they are not being fair?
Understanding.
Where would the people find the money to buy popcorn?
At least water should help. To listen to the article by the president himself, what he wrote as to how to deal with the issue of subsidy, which Jonathan had tried to phase out, not even remove with fiat at that time. So we're going to take that. Like I said, the show ends today by 9 o'clock. So, but Barrister Kotsagbalale Koni, this article was written by Olufason and it was published by the Business Day newspaper in July 2023, 2 months after subsidy was removed by President Tinubu. You know, subsidy is gone.
Announced.
It was announced. Yeah, it was announced
Because
to be.
technically, people,
You are now
government will
paraphrasing.
tell
He said subsidy is gone. And like I've said, up till today, if you ask anybody in the government, even Bayo Ononuga will still tell you that there's no subsidy anywhere.
Yes.
Of course, all manner of names have come into the conversation: intervention, cost recovery, blah blah blah. But whatever that is, Olufason is saying this again. You know, it got to a point where it was almost as if it was a consensus. Okay, let's even this troublesome subsidy go. But how should it go? And look at what Olufason has said, and I want you to comment on this particular article. I had to just pick a few of what he wrote. He said, for 8 years, since I started writing a weekly column in this newspaper, talking about the Business Day newspaper in 2014, I repeatedly called for the abolition of fuel subsidy. It distorted the economy and fed massive corruption. Of course, at that point, that became a problem. So when on his first day as president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu scrapped the subsidy, I should be thrilled and excited. But no, I wasn't. And he said, why? Well, as a political economist, I know the dynamics and interplay between politics, economics, and institutions. The right economic policy under the wrong political conditions or the wrong institutional process will lack credibility and efficacy. In policy making, there's a distinction between substance and process. Substance is what to do. That is the nuts and bolts of a policy. The process is how to do it. How could Tinubu be possessed with courage to announce a policy with far-reaching consequences for ordinary citizens without adequate consultation, preparation, and remedial measures? Both must work in sync. Otherwise, there's a risk of failure. Tinubu broke the link between substance and what? Process. Tinubu went into his inauguration on May 29 without the intention to scrap the fuel subsidy from day one. And he explained why.
Yeah, it's so.
Rather, his prepared speech referred to phasing out the subsidy in line with his manifesto, which is the Renewed Hope 2023, his manifesto, which says on page 37, for people who have that manifesto, we shall phase out the fuel subsidy. It was even in the manifesto, the Renewed Hope manifesto, page 37. That was face out. Gradual.
We are not in that phasing now. Since we know that.
let's get a bit more serious. Indeed, the manifesto linked the removal of the oil subsidy to the Dangote refinery, saying by the time we take office, the Dangote refinery would have been fully operational, nullifying need to import refined petroleum products. Adding, there will be no need for a subsidy because supply will come from local refineries.
Yeah, local production.
But as of today, Nigeria is still importing refined petroleum. This was an article that I was reading just 2 months after Tinubu became president and removed subsidy by fiat. But as of today, Nigeria is still importing refined petroleum.
Yeah.
So the preconditions set out in Tinubu's manifesto for complete scrapping the fuel subsidy have not been met. Yet, despite his prepared inauguration speech merely referring to phasing out the subsidy, Tinubu blotted out the fuel subsidy is what? Gone. Later, during his recent trip to France, that was the trip to France last year, Tinubu told the Nigerian community in Paris what actually happened. He said he did not discuss the automatic removal of the fuel subsidy with his aides before the inauguration and did not include it in his speech.
Yes.
Then he said, when I got to the podium, I was possessed with courage and I said subsidy is gone. Really? Possessed with courage? What kind of courage possessed Tinubu to behave like an autocrat? In a democracy, the cause cannot simply excuse the leader and justify the means. The fact that a cause is right doesn't mean it can be pursued by just any means. How could Tinubu be possessed with courage to announce a policy with far-reaching consequences for ordinary citizens?
Monumental policy.
Without adequate consultation, preparation, and remedial measures. That's just a part of what Olufason wrote in the Business Day newspaper sometime July 2023. Olalikoni. Is this not reversible? Can the president redo what he did? And don't you think this terrible mistake of the president is the reason why everything seems to be falling apart for this administration?
Well, I said earlier that I said it somewhere that I don't see this president reversing this policy. In fact, I don't see. If you look at each time he comes out to talk about what is happening in the country, his policies, what he has done, what his administration wants to do, you hear excuses about what they are doing, why the subsidy must go, why the payment is going into some pockets of
why the
fuel.
subsidy must go. I said, it was almost at some point an agreement amongst the political class and maybe a larger population of Nigerians that subsidy had to go because they had become problematic.
But
but what of the fact that even in the manifesto of the APC, it was faced. What happened?
Which was something he advocated for.
We're going to listen to him in 2012 in his article. What he wrote in 2012.
So I think that, like that man wrote,
yes, Olufasun,
it has to be methodical. I think the approach was what he got wrong.
So don't you think he should have addressed this in the speech today, since it was one of the demands of the protesters?
He keeps in his own mind, in his own way, you will see that he keeps addressing it. He keeps talking about subsidy. And he will tell you that the reason why that payment has to go. Now, what Atiku Bagudu said yesterday was that the government is not paying the subsidy again, but NNPC, instead of making profit. That's the excuse Atiku Bagudu gave yesterday. So, at the end of the day, the president doesn't see it as a mistake. He keeps telling you that.
So, if you don't admit mistake, how do you correct it?
So, let me say this.
Is that the way to correct?
I think that what is troubling this president right now,
yes,
is pride.
Yes, and
ego.
Yes.
I cannot go
back on my words
before these ordinary citizens and said, I
take back my words.
We've even brought back subsidy.
Made mistake.
Or the subsidy is even back.
Yes.
Because you see, like that article said,
yes,
the things he ought to have done first,
which was in the policy manifesto,
are the things he's doing now. It's like a man bought a house, a standing house.
Yes.
But he had this preconceived notion that part of the structure of that house has they had problems that he needed to face. But without bringing engineers to examine the structure and say, this area is good, this area is not good, let's do it this way, he threw a bomb into the entire structure and brought it down. And then he said to the engineers,
yes,
now let's pick the robust and begin to check which one is strong, which one we can still use
to fix the building.
When what you needed, see, all the CNG talk, all the palliatives, these
the
are
monies
things
for
you
this
energy in place first. And you know why? Why these conversations are very difficult to have. You recall that when Jonathan removed subsidy,
yes,
he set up the Colade committee
to manage
which was supposed to take
manage the funds, savings,
and then and all that. And at the point, Colade himself had to resign because he's
these the old man
consistently the pattern.
Yes.
We've gotten to a point that Nigerians don't even believe anybody anymore, and because of what they see.
Trust deficit.
Said so.
Yes,
in the speech.
Now
he knows that promises, hopes have been dashed before, but this government.
But how well are they renewing the hope of the people and the trust of the people in government?
The simple thing that this president is here to realize, and like I said here before, we have never been governed by those we elected. We have always been governed by those we didn't elect.
How do you mean?
Okay, so you have a president who has selected some people around him.
Okay, all right.
They are now the policy makers.
Yes.
Okay.
All he does
and we didn't elect them.
Oh, yes, all he does is he takes.
President.
In fact, there are states and even in countries where the chief of staff is more powerful than even the president.
Yes.
Because this president feel that, these guys are my loyalists, they care for me. So whatever they throw to the president, he takes and runs with it.
Yes.
You heard the example of former president Goodluck Jonathan.
Yes.
When the results were coming out, he had this instinct to say, I will accept the results.
To concede,
and then concede.
Yes.
But there were ministers who came to him and said,
you can't do this.
Don't.
And he had to escape from them.
To take that decision.
He was going inside to do something, and then he made that call.
To
and when
Buhari,
he came out and told them, I've made the call, I can't take it back. Now, look, when you look at presidents who have been very successful, one of the things they do is to always come clean with their people. Listen to them. Look at Abraham Lincoln. Okay? Even look at Joe Biden. Man, who few days before he threw in the towel said,
yes,
unless God comes down from heaven,
I'm not going to
leave. Once that man was shown public opinion poll
and why he needs to leave,
70% of Americans think he's too old, he needs to go. What happened?
it came out.
It came out. So the citizens are the most important in the equation of governance. And if you are there always reeling out the data, the statistics, the good intentions that you have, you understand? A man who has not eaten does not understand what 1 billion to 75 manufacturing outfit means.
He doesn't care.
Now, even though it will yield results.
But at that time, we
have not seen that result over decades.
At least from 1999 till date, we've not seen the result.
This is the problem.
And this money has been going out.
And the money has been going out.
And then, look, the other thing is that why this president is constantly asking us to dip into our patient bank. Go to your patient bank.
He said there's no other way. I wish there was any other way.
But what has he done at his own personal level? And at the level of his ministers, what have they done
differently
to show Nigerians that, look, we are in these things together.
Reduced territory.
We are suffering these pains together, and we are going to enjoy it together. Rather, what we see is a class of people who are living in ultra luxury while telling others to keep making sacrifices.
What's your quote?
That's the problem. And when the people are now saying, Mr. President, in spite of all the figures you have been given, our reality, this is our reality, and we want you to address it. And your response to them is that, as far as I'm concerned, I have done well. And I'm going to build on.
And this is what I'm doing, because I believe this policy is right.
And this is what I'm going to keep doing going forward. Mr. President, what you are doing is not helping the people. Let me give you a practical example. Years ago, my daughter was in one secondary school. And every time we go there for parents to assess the results of the students, my daughter wins the award for effort. And one day I asked one of the teachers, how does this girl make all this effort and never becomes the best
in the class?
At least in one subject.
You keep awarding her for efforts.
And she tells me, say, Daddy, don't look. These two people, I know what they are doing, because the parents of these other children give them money. They're always giving me effort. I'm the best in this subject. One day I say, look, don't worry yourself. The examiners that you mark your final papers
will not be these people.
Will not be these people.
Yes.
Whether it's effort you are making or you are really getting there, I will see it.
At that level.
When the results came out, she was the best in her school for 3 years based on her result. All the people that were winning the subjects and my daughter was only getting efforts were nowhere to be found. So what is the purpose of effort if it doesn't translate to results?
The results.
Mr. President, nobody is saying you're not making effort. You're making effort.
Is this a timeline thing? Are we too much in a hurry? Because people have said that, look, this is a president that's barely spent 1 year. Maybe we should be more patient with him. Yeah.
He said 14 months in his broadcast.
Yes, but 14 months, yes.
Fuad, is 14 months too small or too early to address basic concerns? And the reason why I ask this question is that, is Mr. President and those in his government, are they waiting for 14 months
to take what they want to take?
What they will take for their offices and for them to run the government? Are they waiting?
They didn't wait to get the SUV, really. They didn't wait to renovate the vice president's. They didn't wait. They didn't even wait 6 months to start talking about renovating the VP's residence.
So you see what I'm saying?
Olalekan, do you think it's a matter of time, or the president should begin to rework his priorities, really, when it concerns this issue of fuel subsidy and the hardship in the land?
Yes. That's why I want to refer to what he said about the 570 billion that goes to the
governors, yes.
You said something which I also agree with, that I think that reaching out to the people, alleviating these sufferings and hunger and all of that, the approach should be changed.
He needs to rework that approach, yeah.
I saw Reno Omokri wrote something today which I agree with, and I read it. You see, you have patronized these governors.
Not enough.
You have patronized them. Because if you look at it, for the short-term plan of the president was that, okay, there's hunger. We have put in some money into agriculture, which he mentioned in his broadcast today. We have put in some money in agriculture, and in a few months' time, we will begin to have these results and all of that. But what are the short-term plans? The short-term plans are that we do palliatives into the, federating into the states via the governors. And this palliative has not touched anywhere. I think they've shared rice and all of these things for some time now, maybe twice or three times into the states, shared monies and all of that. But we have seen that this thing has not been effective. If you open your phone lines now and say that like 1 million people can call in and they will tell you that they didn't get palliative.
Let me. Does that buttress what Olufason said in this article when he said that the fact that the cause is right does not mean it can be pursued by just any means?
Yes, sir.
How could Tinubu be possessed with courage to announce a policy with far-reaching consequences for ordinary Nigerians?
Let me tell you this.
Without adequate consultation,
yes,
preparation, and remedial measures.
Yes. So the approach has been very wrong. And that's why we see that probably the president is trying to do something right.
So
by the Constitution of Nigeria, the president has no option. He has to give to the states what belongs to the states. And once that gets to the states, the governors take over from there.
No, apart from the federal allocation.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
This palliative thing,
yeah.
I think that the approach can be changed.
But the president, you see, what the president met on ground, the governor said they didn't want. They didn't want the list.
Yeah, there was a list where they said the governor's list. I remember.
They wanted to bring in.
I remember Charles Soludo even dismissing the list and saying that, look.
Let's even look at it this way. In a situation where things are done properly, the president has no business giving governors money to take care of their people.
That's what I'm saying.
All that the governors need to do is to rearrange their priorities to include the people.
In their priorities.
Yes.
In their priorities. And you can do that according to the resources that is available to you. And the reason why our people do not trust this government is because they don't know the truth. When the governor says to you, we are not earning enough from the federation account, what we are earning, after we pay salaries, we can't
There's nothing left.
Anything. We have to go. But then it does a bond. The governor promotes a bond where he brings in hundreds of billions. He doesn't tell the people what he's doing with that.
The monies, the
all
borrowings.
The people see as that almost every 2 years, the governor is buying brand new set of vehicles.
Yes.
You understand? The governor is traveling abroad with large entourage.
Yeah.
So you see all this.
They see commissioners, they see people around the governor living larger than life. Yeah, huge.
And
White elephant projects.
Cost of governance. If you go to states, if you know the aids all these governors has,
so they tell
SSAs, in fact, if you go to.
First of all, I once addressed this. We have 36 states. And we have 36 state houses
of assembly.
Yes.
And in the constitution, there is no state that has got less than 24 members of the state of assembly.
Yeah.
Commissioners.
They are there.
The SSAs. The PAs.
SSAs.
Former governor of River State appointed how many SAs and PAs?
I think maybe about 200.
More than okay. River, Wike,
yes.
While he was leaving, it was in thousands.
I think, they even did the inauguration in the stadium.
Even the present one.
And you know why? You see, you know why? Because we have come to see government as a compensatory institution.
And that's the system I was talking about.
Yes,
at that time.
that when people work for you or support a political party,
yes,
the only way you can compensate them
is to bring them into
is political appointment.
So how does that help the living standard of the people, the reality of the people?
If you then channel these funds into improving the economic system by creating avenues where people can apply their talents, and get by, it will be better for everybody. Let's tell ourselves the truth. Look at the state like the United States. Yes, although I mentioned the Constitution, that the Constitution says at least the president will appoint or shall appoint at least one minister from a state. But do you realize that as big as the United States is, it's got only 25 cabinet members.
And there are 50 states.
There are 50 states.
So from the Constitution itself.
There's a problem.
There's a problem.
With the
but you know what? This president can work to amend that constitution.
Because he seems to have the,
This president amended the constitution to change the national anthem in a very, in fact,
1, 2, 3 readings was done how many minutes?
So that's why. But you see,
So people think he has that goodwill to be able to change this thing.
Character.
Yes.
Do you think it will fly through the National Assembly?
No, but what people
Because it will affect
the
some
national character is only, you know that this national character thing
Yes.
is been taken out of context. It's not only respect to appointment at the federal level. It's all appointment from the local to the highest
state,
level.
to the federal.
And I can tell you, no government from the top to bottom.
It's immune to this.
It's even practicing the federal character thing.
Okay,
It's only when it comes to political appointment
Yes.
at the national level.
Now,
that
this
we talk about
So
it.
distribution of even the, at the end of the day, that's what I was saying.
Yes.
The system itself. There are many things that are wrong with the system. Because this federal character, it's easy to say that the president can scrap this, the president can say this.
But there's something
But the
that is
issue
holding
that
him
will
down.
arise
from-
all of these things.
There are low-hanging fruits. There are things that the president can. Don't forget that when he came, there was a time that he merged so many agencies of government.
From the Roundtable report.
Yes, those
it has not been implemented.
Yeah.
implemented.
But he gave that directive.
Yes.
And nobody went to court to challenge him.
Yes. But have they been implemented?
Well, I don't know, because this government.
I think there was a committee. They were given 12 weeks.
Because
And
the
Have
thing
they
is that this
implemented?
government is long on intention and very short
an implementation.
on implementation, like every other government before them. So the thing here is this: Mr. President must understand that the times are very difficult for the average citizens. Not the people he sees around him daily.
Yes.
The people he doesn't see and doesn't hear from. Mr. President, when you watch television, and I'm sure, although you say you don't go to the social media, but you watch television, those old market women who supported you and who are now crying out are not being mobilized by any political opposition. They are feeling what they are feeling. They know what they are going through. And these are the people that they should, because government is about the most vulnerable in the society.
Now, government about the most vulnerable and about the people. I think you've also highlighted why sometimes people in power find it very difficult to use governance to really work for the people. You've talked about political patronage. These over-bloated cabinets, appointments. At the end of it, it's about, they work for the party. Yes. The pressure comes to the president, it comes to the governors.
Yes.
One of the demands
Local
of the local government chairman to
There's something they call non-pensionable in local government.
Non-pensionable
Payment.
These
non-pensionable payments
yes.
could cover varies in some local government. It could cover up to 1,000 people.
Just pay them.
Yes, every month.
Are they staff or they are just?
They are not staff now. They are non-pensionable. They don't come. It's political patronage. Sometimes 500 people, sometimes 200 people, sometimes
they just get the money
they just
for
get
doing
money
nothing
every month.
All right. So,
it's patronage. So at the end of the day, sir, when you don't do all of these things, what happens to you?
We become very political. We are vulnerable. You know. So what we are saying is that one of the demands of the protesters is that look at the electoral reforms. To the point where, it's not about a few people who work for you to get to power, who have what it takes, the deep pocket, the political structure to manipulate the electoral process for you to get there. Why not have a system that really gives the power to the people so that you cannot use your position to work for the people?
The foundation of our problem
is
this political process. That's the foundation.
So how well do you think the president is even addressing the political process?
Yes. Mr. Fuad, we've seen in the last election, this problem is big. In the last election, we saw people who said that Tinubu is the worst and all of that. But when you push appointments to these people, do they collect it? And by the time they collect all of these appointments, they keep quiet. So when we say, for example, I just brought it to the grassroots, local government, where you have a non-pensionable. This money varies between 20 to 50,000 to 100,000 monthly, depending on how deep you are in the party and all of that. Some of these monies, the people that collect this money will come out and say that if the local government tries to stop this money, there'll be issues. So our political process is faulty. And that's why I would support that this thing should be reformed.
What exactly?
And this is what...
The electoral process.
The electoral process. How do people get into offices? How? So people will bring 100 million naira, 200 million naira to support a governor, or president, and all of that.
They are investing.
Yes, and they will say in Yoruba that kì í ṣe òṣèlú torí Ọlọ́run. What's English? That we don't do politics.
Nobody for the sake
so
of
what he's
God.
telling you is that I've brought 200 million to you,
And I must
500 million must come out in full.
Vice Curtis, do you think this president, because again, people have talked about every other thing we've talked about, we're still going to go back to subsidy removal and the process of either facing it or not, and what the president said in 2012 about how subsidy should have been addressed when Jonathan tried to remove it. But on electoral reforms, which we have now also identified as a problem to governance in Nigeria, because a lot of these guys are political jobbers. They work for the president, they work for the governor, they work for the chairman. They must be compensated whether they qualify or not. There's a lot to share. You know, I've also seen leaders who say, "Got to one let talk me. You guys should just calm down." In all this thinking they are doing, sorry, Pastor, because I will explain. In all this sharing they are doing amongst themselves,
There is God, though.
there is God. All these things they are sharing. So at the end of the day, the interest of the people is nowhere to be found. So do you think the president, as part of the demands of the protesters, should have also addressed the conscious effort he's making to reform the electoral process?
First of all, this president is not going to reform in the electoral process. And I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because he doesn't say anything wrong with the electoral process.
Ooh, really?
Because, listen, let's tell ourselves the truth. This president said this was the best election the country ever conducted. Because he lost Lagos. And that
is enough to say the
there were
process was
places
okay,
that,
yeah.
I mean, so, and when you don't see anything wrong with the system, how are you going to correct it?
No way.
Now, what we have here is a different situation from the Yar'Adua situation. Of course, we know that the former president Obasanjo said the election was a do or die affair. And we saw what happened all over the country. But the beneficiary of that process,
that faulty process, yes,
admitted that the elections were deeply flawed and that he was willing to accept the outcome of the verdict or the decision of the Supreme Court. But the court didn't find anything wrong with it. The court said that we're not talking about perfect election, but substantial compliance with the process.
Yeah.
And the fact that happened. But then, Yar'Adua went beyond the call of duty.
Beyond his own personal interest.
Yeah, he went in deep
into his conscience,
into his moral tank, and said, look, yes, I benefited from this, but I think the Nigerian people deserve better. And then he set up the wise to look at the electoral process in the country.
And
this president is not going to do that because he doesn't think that anything was wrong with the process that produced him. And two, he feels that if he admits or admitted that
there was a problem with the election,
flaws, it means that
his legitimacy is challenged.
It's challenged. And that's already in question. So maybe another person, not this president, or maybe after having his fill on his way out at the exit gate.
So that means they are not.
I see that.
So
he will see the need.
So that means they are not identifying.
That's exactly what I wanted to say.
The reason why the faulty electoral process is the reason why governance seems not to be working for the people. It's about those that work.
You cannot separate the process from the product.
And even the people, sir.
And the problem here is that there are a lot of the few things that need to change in our political lexicon. The whole idea that you got elected by those who worked for you. Those who worked for you didn't elect you. The people who elected you are those who voted.
But in the minds of people in government, they don't see. They think people work for them and they should be compensated.
Yes.
This is the problem.
Yes.
That even when they are creating jobs to give to people to execute, it's not about the priorities or the need of the people. It's about what kind of jobs can bring out the money that they need to compensate those who funded them.
All right, we're going to still come back to...
So you go to states that are extremely poor.
Poor, yes.
They have no pipe-borne water. They have no hospitals.
No roads.
Their priorities is overhead.
And build airports.
Overhead bridge.
And even build airport.
No traffic. Look at the airport in Ekiti. No plane has gone there.
Osogbo, yes.
There was an Olaya bridge. The current governor is building another bridge very close to Olaya.
Where people practically are not even using. What's the need for that?
We have in
Osogbo.
States where children.
Ekitinko, the bridge that Fauci built.
Yes.
1 kilometer or 1.9 kilometer bridge. What's it serving?
Nobody.
There's another one going on in Ondo State by the former governor, Onyaru Bulem. That's what they call the area. Even though the present governor said he will continue, he started,
So they go into these projects,
yes, now
leaving the real things that should taught the people.
They go, they sit down. Oh, what can we do for Mr. Fuhad? He gave us 200 million.
They come up with a project
in the last election. Oh,
and push the first one.
If we build this bridge, where there's okay, what can we do for Lalekon? He gave us 200 million.
Please, you don't mean I'm just
okay. Now, what can we really do, Your Excellency? If we give water, no, I don't think that's what Mr.
That one can be big enough to.
The easiest things, overhead bridge of 1 kilometer.
So the water you mentioned, sir, in Ondo State.
Yes,
you can fact check me. 10.8 billion naira water aid from for
local communities.
8 billion. You can fact check
for water.
Yes.
And where did they do the water?
So when this issue came, Sarah Reporters was the one that brought it out. Then the government said they have provided portable water for people in Akure. I go to Akure very well. There is no water anywhere in Akure.
And 10.8 billion came out.
Yes, and you can fact check me. What on Sarah Reporters?
You know the irony?
Yes.
When Nigeria didn't have this much money,
these things were done.
These things were available.
Yes.
Public water was available.
Yes. I mean, you grew up in
Lagos. Yes, taps were running
with water.
Yes.
Taps running.
But now that there's this money that keeps coming, there's nothing for the people.
Nothing. Found. In fact, some people will argue with you that local government was working well,
even under the military.
During military,
of course, yes.
Than what we have now.
And you know why it was working better?
Yes,
because elections were held on non-party basis.
Yes.
So true elections were held.
Yes.
So again, the electoral process conversation. Yes.
Individuals didn't have the machinery to rig the process as political parties are doing.
You even tried.
I remember that, I said it. I said, look, there were times where local elections were conducted in Lagos and the opposition had some local government that they would always win.
Yes.
The ruling party,
they are
Badagry, at least I know Badagry. They will never win Badagry.
Let me tell you how funny things are in this country. So you conduct a governorship election in a state, National Assembly election in a state, where the results showed that maybe the ruling party took about 55% or 60%, and the opposition took about 40%.
And the local government election will come.
Local government election the 40% will disappear completely.
I think 15 states are in a hurry to conduct. Almost 20. And there's a developing story in your state. The 33 local government chairmen I've just suddenly said that they are moving out of Algon and saying that, look, all of these arrangements from the Supreme Court, they don't care. That their loyalty is still for the governor, and they are even telling the federal government
that the money should go into the state
that they don't want the money directly. Local government chairman.
Which state is that?
Oyo State.
Oyo today.
That they should please pay the governor the money to pay them.
They have been infested by Sheyi Makinde virus.
Yes, that's what they said.
They said they stand with the governor.
That's what they said.
They said they stand with the governor. Yes.
The voice you are hearing is Sheyi Makinde's voice through their voices.
Through the 33 local government chairmen.
They even did it in the church. All of them wore white.
They wore white. They did actually be. So again,
what about Benue? What about Benue? In Benue,
yes,
the governor was said to have quickly sworn in
the local government
caretaker committee and backdated it.
So but we'll take a short break now. It's a break that would give you the opportunity to listen to a voice recording of the article written by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Of course, an opportunity for us to also, take a bottle of water. We also advise that you enjoy this voice recording as voiced by Omobola Sandra. This article was written by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and it was published in January 2012. That was when the former President Goodluck Jonathan attempted to remove subsidy. And this was a position of the president at that time, well enumerated as to how subsidy should be dealt with, as against the removal of subsidy by fiat. It was titled, Removal of Oil Subsidy. President Jonathan Breaks Social Contract with the People. About 4,000 words. Very long one. It's going to take us about 30 minutes to listen to this voice recording. Just enjoy it. Like I said, we are extending the show by 1 hour today, so we're stopping the show by 9 o'clock. So after this voice recording, we'll come back again, dissect the issues, highlighted in that article by the president then, and then of course open the phone lines for you to be a part of the show. Again, get a bottle of water, popcorn, or anything that you can lay your hands on to enjoy this voice recording. Still Political Roundtable Mainland 98.3 FM. And it's Political Roundtable. We have Barrister Curtis Adigba in the studio. We have Olale Koni in the studio, and together we've been looking at the address of the president today, saying that, look, I've heard you loud and clear, and that, look, it's time for dialogue. That's addressing the protesters who are on the End Bad Governance protest across the country. Let's listen to this voice recording, again, an article written by the president in 2012 on subsidy removal, and we'll be right back.
Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos. Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.
Removal of oil subsidy. President Jonathan breaks social contract with the people. Published January 2012 by Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. As Nigerians gathered with family and friends to celebrate the new year, the federal government was baking a national cake wrapped in the scheme that would instantly make the new year a bitter one. Barely had the public weaned itself from last year when government dropped a historic surprise on an unsuspecting nation. PPPRA issued a statement abolishing the fuel subsidy. By this sly piece of paper, the federal government breached the social contract with the people. This government, which owes its very existence to the people's desire to be governed by someone more humble than elitist, has turned its back on the collective will. By bureaucratic fiat, government made the most fateful economic decision any administration has made since the inception of the Fourth Republic, and it has done so with an arrogant wave of the hand, as if issuing a minor regulation. Because of the terrible substance of the decision and the haughty style of its enactment, the people feel betrayed and angry. At this moment, we know not to where this anger will lead. In good conscience, we pray against violence. Also, in good conscience, it is the duty of every citizen to peacefully demonstrate and record their opposition to this draconian measure that is swiftly crippling the economy more than it will ever cure it. By taking this step, government has tossed the people into depths of the midnight sea. Government demands the people swim to safety under their own power, claiming the attendant hardship will build character and add efficiency to the national economy. It is easy to make these claims when one is dry and unsure. Government would have us believe that every hardship it manufactures for the people to endure is a good thing. This is a lie. The hardships they thrust upon the poor often bear no other purpose than to keep them poor. This is such a time. I am not calling President Jonathan an evil man. I do not believe he is perverse. However, the economic ideas controlling him are so misguided that they have a perverse impact. Because he is slave to wrong-headed economies, the people will become enslaved to greater misery. This crisis will bear his name and will be his legacy. The people now pay a steep tax for voting him into office. The removal of the subsidy is the Jonathan tax. This situation shows that ideas count more than personalities. People may occupy office, but how that person performs depends on the ideas that occupy his mind. Though someday Nigeria will have to remove the subsidy, the time to do it is not now. This subsidy removal is ill-timed and violates the condition precedent necessary before such a decision is made. First, government needs to clean up and throw away the salad of corruption in the NNPC. Then, proceed to lay the foundation for a mass transit systems in the railways and road network with long-term bonds, and fully develop the energy sector
towards revitalizing Nigeria's economy and easing the burden any subsidy removal may have on the people. But we know this is about more than the fuel subsidy. It is about government's ideas on the role of money in better the lives of people, about the relationship between government and the people, and about the primary objective of government interaction in the economy. It is about whom among the Nigerians' various social classes does government most value. This is why public reaction has been heated. It is not so much that people have to spend more money. It is because people feel shortchanged and sold out. Government needs to convince us that the Jonathan tax is an unavoidable decision mandated by immutable economic principles. If you accept their premise, you must agree with their conclusion. However, their argument falters at its inception. There are few immutable economic principles. Economics is not an exact science with unbreakable rules like physics. Economics is no less subjective than politics. It was born an offshoot of politics, and there it remains. What this government claims to be economic decisions are essentially political ones. As there is progressive politics, there is progressive economics. As there is elitist politics, there is elitist economics. It all depends on what and who in society government would rather favor. The Jonathan tax represents a new standard in elitism. This whole issue boils down to whether government believes the general public is worth a certain level of expenditure. It is like the situation where a man dates more than one woman. To each, he promises love, thus nothing can be deduced from his words. However, we know he will spend and dote more on one, and she will be the one he loves above the others. When banks were in distress, government produced billions of naira out of thin air and in record time. It was explained the swift expenditure was needed to stop the banking system from imploding. There was no worry that government would be bankrupt. If the banks were to fall 20 times in the future, government would jump 20 times to their rescue. It does so because this government leaves a conservative economics, placing it in close alliance, if not collusion, with corporate power. However, because the distance between government and the people is far and genuine level of affection is low, government sees no utility in continuing to spend the current level of money on the people. In their mind, the people are not worth the money. Government sees more value in saving money than in saving the hard-pressed masses. Yet, what does government actually save by this measure? The concept of a government that has the unfettered ability to print its own currency, needing to save that currency from fear of insolvency, is an anachronism. That is, economic advisors would cling to this notion is like a person insisting on taking to the expressway in a horse-drawn carriage. For a government that prints its own currency, attempting to save it in that very currency in order to defend against bankruptcy in that currency is a relic of the gold standard abandoned 40 years ago. If government thrashed the fuel subsidy based on consideration that it will run out of naira, then it based its decision on a factor that have not been relevant since the time of the Biafran War. In 1971, the world left the gold standard, replacing it with state or fiat money. Under the gold standard, a nation had to save gold to support its currency or risk insolvency. After 1971, bondage to gold was broken. Since then, the worth of a nation's currency is not tied to gold, which means that the ability of a nation to print currency is not determined by its holdings of gold. The worth of the currency is based on the strength of the economy, and the amount of money the nation prints is determined by that strength, as well as the nation's future economic objectives. A nation can no longer fall insolvent concerning debts or payments issued in the national currency. As long as the fuel subsidy is paid in naira, then Nigeria cannot go bankrupt paying it any more than the ocean can run out of salt water. In a fiat money system, the problem with the fuel subsidy is not impending insolvency as the government asserts. The serious constraint is inflation. Here, we must ask whether the payment is so inflationary as to distort the economy. We have been making the payment for years and inflation has not wrecked the economy. This historic evidence refutes the imminent disaster claimed by the government. In advancing the argument that subsidy would lead to imminent bankruptcy, government revealed its lack of trustworthiness on important matters of fact. Is this the same government that several weeks ago claimed Nigeria was among the world's best performing economies with a GDP growth rate of 7% annually? It seems the government has a vast canvas on which it can paint a number of scenarios of Nigeria, depending on the whim of the moment. While government may alter its portrait of the nation, the people are forced to live one reality at a time. Is Nigeria a fast-growing economy? If the nation's GDP is growing so strongly, the subsidy or a similar expenditure on the people cannot be the lethal burden government now maligns it to be. Nigerians have a collective stake in the ownership of our oil resource, held in the trust by the government of the day. What we need is the effective management of this scarce resource that will beget long-term prosperity to the suffering people of Nigeria, and not the present racket in which those in power abuse access and control of NNPC and oil revenue to warehouse money to fund their election campaigns. This brings us to another inconsistency. On one hand, government states the expenditure is unsustainable. Yet on the other hand, it claims the amount now earmarked for the subsidy will be used to fund other people-oriented programs. However, the two assertions cannot exist at the same time. If the subsidy is bankrupting us, then reallocating funds to different programs will also no less harmful. A bankrupting expenditure retains its quality, whether used for the subsidy or another purpose. Earmarking the funds to something else will not change the fiscal impact. If government is sincere about using the funds for other programs, then it must be insincere about the threatened insolvency. The concern about government saving naira is purely superfluous. Officials cry that Nigeria will become like Greece. Those who say this disqualify themselves from high office by their own words. Greece sits in a terrible situation because it forfeited its own currency. Thus, it cannot print itself out of insolvency, and it must save or earn euro to pay its bills. Because Nigeria issues its own currency, it does not face the same constraint. Again, Nigeria's problem with the subsidy is not insolvency. Therefore, to go from subsidy to nothing is not wise economics, for it saves government nothing. What it does is produce real havoc and misery for the majority of the people, while the government elite worship their mistaken fiscal rectitude. Ironically, by acting like the old gold standard fiscal constraints are real, this government will incur the very thing it seeks to avoid. It will subject Nigeria to a crushing economic contraction. The difference between us and the Greeks will be that their situation is the inevitable result of being a weak member in a monetary union dominated by a strong economy. while our downturn will be a discretionary one artificially induced by the backwardness of our policymakers. By its action, our government placed itself on the list of conservative governments, imposing unwise austerity programs on tired and weak economies. The results have been alarming. Greece, Ireland, Spain, Italy, and the UK have imposed stiff austerity. Each nation that has done so now has an intimate relationship with recession. Must we travel the same path? Why does our government think an independently minded Nigerian success is inferior to the mimicry of European failure? I don't understand why we take this road. Our government has aligned itself with the goals of the European conservatives and not with the needs of the Nigerian populace. No one plucks a chicken to feed his children feathers, nor does a man set his house on fire just so people can bring him water. However, this is spirit behind government policy. There has been no nation on the face of the planet that has developed or achieved long-term prosperity by devotion to conservative, ultra-free market economic ideas that dominate this government. America, the United Kingdom, and now China all base their initial thrust toward national economic development on significant government interplay in the economy and on sustained government fiscal deficits. If no nation has grown using these conservative ideas when growth was constrained by the gold standard, why would we shackle ourselves to these ideas when we operate under a monetary system that provides the federal government greater policy latitude to achieve economic development objectives? Again, we must rid ourselves of the old notion that government saving and budgetary surpluses are inherently good and that deficits are always bad. For government to save naira, that means it brings in more than it pays out. Where does this influx come from? It comes from you and me, the private sector. If the federal government saves more, it means the private sector will have less. Government surplus means private sector contraction. This shows that the administration has its priorities confused. It acts as if the people are there to help government run itself. The more beneficial relationship is that government should be giving the people the help needed to live and better their lives. The government's position is akin to a wealthy parent demanding his young children bring home more food for him to consume than the parent gives them to eat. We would deride any parent for such meanness. Yet this government believes this conduct is wise and prudent. Another argument government has presented is that removal of the subsidy will stabilize the exchange rate. This makes no sense. True. Since marketers convert much of the naira from selling petrol gained into dollars, there is downward pressure on the exchange rate and foreign reserves. However, this pressure is not a byproduct of the subsidy. It is a byproduct of importation. With the subsidy lifted, the marketers will earn the same and more from the sale of petrol. For there to be less pressure on the exchange rate would mean the marketers will seek to exchange significantly less of the same amount of naira into dollars simply because the subsidy was removed. There is no logical basis to assume the new Jonathan tax will have the behavioral impact of causing importers to want to hold more naira. The downward pressure on our currency and reserves will not change simply because the imported items are no longer subsidized. In fact, the higher rate of inflation caused by the removal may make importers keener to change naira into dollars. Thus, the real challenge in this regard is for government to pave the way to increase domestic production. There is another philosophical misery in the government's position. They state the subsidy must be removed to end the unjust enrichment of the importing cabal. There's a major problem with this assertion. If this is truly a subsidy, there should be no unjust enrichment. A subsidy is created to allow the general public pay a lesser price while sellers earn the prevailing marketing price. Subsidy removal should not increase or decrease the amount earned per litre by the suppliers. If the amount earned by the suppliers will diminish materially, what government had been operating was in part a pro-importer price support mechanism on top of the consumer-friendly subsidy. If this is the case, government could have abolished the unneeded price support while retaining the consumer subsidy. More to the point, government has failed to show how the system it plans to use will be protected from the undue influence and unfair dealings of those who benefited from the discarded subsidy regime. Because it is capital intensive by its very nature, this sector of the economy is susceptible to control by a few powerful companies. Most of the players will remain the same, except that a few cronies of the administration will be allowed entrance into the lucrative game. Sending the economy into the gutter is a steep cost to pay, just so a few friends can reap a new windfall. Government claims the subsidy removal will create jobs. This is misleading. The stronger truth is that it will destroy more jobs than it creates. For every job it creates in the capital-intensive petroleum sector, it will terminate several jobs in the rest of the labor-intensive economy. Subsidy removal will increase costs across the board. However, salaries will not increase. This means demand for goods will lessen, as will sales volumes and overall economic activity. The removal will have a recessionary impact on the economy as a whole. While some will benefit from the removal, some or most will experience setback. What is doubtless is that the Jonathan tax will increase the price of petrol, transportation, and most consumer items. With fuel prices increasing twofold or more, transportation costs will roughly double. Prices of food staples will increase between 25 to 50%. Yet, this is more than about cost figures. Most people's incomes are low and stagnant. They have no way to augment revenue and little room to lower expenses for the new luxuries they are already tapped out. The only alternative they have is to fend as best they can, knowing they must somehow again subtract something from their already bare existence. There will be less food, less medicine, and less school across the land. More children will cry in hunger, and more parents will cry at their children's despair. This is what government has done. Poor and middle-class consumers will spend the same amount to buy much less. The volume of economic activity will drop like a stone tossed from a high building. This means real levels of demand will sink. The middle class, to which our small businessmen belong, will find their profit margins squeezed because they will face higher costs and reduced sales volume. These small firms employ vast number of Nigerians. They will be hard-pressed to maintain current employment levels given the higher costs and lower revenues they will face. Because the middle-class businessmen will be pinched, those who depend on the businessmen for employment will be heavily pressed. States that earn significant revenue from internally generated funds will find their positions damaged. Internally generated revenue will decline because the pressure on general economic activity. The Jonathan tax will push Nigeria toward an inflation-recession combination punch worse than the one that Europe is reeling. This tax has doomed Nigeria to extra hardship for years to come, while the promised benefits of deregulation will never be substantially realized. People will starve and families crumble, while federal officials praise themselves for saving money, in quote. The purported savings amount to nothing more than an accounting entry on the government ledger board. They bear no indication of the real state of the economy or of the great harm done to the people by this miserly step. As stated before, the threat of bankruptcy is nothing more than a ghost of something long dead. The real consideration is not whether this sum should be spent, but whether it is better spent on the subsidy or on other programs. Nigeria do not need to be wedded to the subsidy. It is not the subsidy that gives life to the social compact. The amount of the expenditure is the better litmus. When attempting to douse popular sentiment, government pretended that the social contract would remain intact because government will spend the money saved from the subsidy on other programs. This will be nice if supported by action. If government were sincere in this regard, it would have used an entirely different strategy. It would have looked on the removal as evolutionary, long-term, instead of a sudden event accomplished by executive decree. If government had proceeded along these lines, it would have first perfected the plans for the new programs and projects that would receive the funds previously allocated the subsidy. These plans would have been in place and ready to implement. Only then would the subsidy be removed. To say that they would develop programs once the subsidy is removed suggests government's heart is not in these alternatives. Government only raised this possibility as a public relations afterthought to douse public opposition. For instance, the government's top spokesperson said it was obvious the administration had guillotined the subsidy since it was not included in the 2012 budget. If we take this as the measure, there is no evidence in that budget of government transferring the bulk of subsidy savings to other programs. Using the reasoning employed by government itself, the budget reveals no sympathetic plan to buffer the effects of the Jonathan tax. Even if the government wanted to engage in naira for naira alternative social spending, it would take well over a year for the programs to have even minimal effect. Such expenditures would require new legislation. Given the pace of the National Assembly, such legislation will take months, even if fast-tracked. Then appropriations would have to be made before the process of procurement began. If the federal government were to buy sufficient buses to subsidize urban transport across the nation, orders would have to be placed for the purchase and importation of these buses. Again, months will elapse. If we are aiming at major road construction, the processes of project planning, contract bidding will require well over a year after a project is approved and funds appropriated. Last, government has just established a large committee to oversee this alternative expenditure. We have no need for such another body. If competent, government would not require this help. Moreover, we have seen this tactic before. Time and money will be devoted to running the committee. More attention will go to the committee's emoluments than to its fundamental work. The actual parameters of the committee's scope of work are nebulous and ill-timed. Will it have the authority to act or only to advise? This looks like another blind alley where government hopes to misdirect our attention. This committee is not meant to accomplish anything except to numb public opposition. Government hopes people will posit confidence in the body because of the eminent people named to it. By the time the public discovers the committee is a zombie creation, too much time would have elapsed and it will be too late to reignite public protests. The people then will resign themselves to fate. This trick has worked in the past. It will not work today because the people are much too aware and too agitated. In the end, the federal government has done the nation an awful disservice at the worst time. This is an unneeded and avoidable emergency. Pursuing the grail of elitist economics, the federal government brings economic disaster to our doorstep. Attempting to protect government bank accounts from false bankruptcy, they push the people into real bankruptcy. Government is relying on the fact that people are long-suffering and patient. They think the people will quickly forget this latest assault and return to the grueling challenge of daily survival. Government thinks people will be so fixated on survival that they will forget government has made survival more difficult. Rarely has a government been this cynical. Not even the reclusive Yar'Adua or the dictator Obasanjo placed this hardship on the people. Of course, Nigerians know that Obasanjo failed spectacularly to lay the necessary infrastructural foundation which could have made the recent removal of subsidy an easier decision for President Jonathan and a lesser burden for Nigerians to bear. Nigeria in Jonathan is confronted with a government on top of the people rather than a government for the people. It is as if Jonathan has turned from president to pharaoh and has decreed that the people make bricks without straw. What manner of leader has he become? I don't know. However, there is only one just way out of this distress. Government must modify the certain and complete removal of the subsidy. Either we restore the subsidy or use the funds for other social purposes. If we are to use the funds for other programs, those programs shall be placed on parallel track with the subsidy. As more of these programs are ready to go online, then the subsidy can be lifted in phases. In this way, the public is assured government will not lower its total expenditure on their behalf, thus maintaining the spirit central to the social contract. Fuel price increases will be moderated so as not to cause extreme economic distress, and the people will see and feel the benefit of the alternative programs at the same time of the cost increases, thus further blunting the adverse impact of these increases. Until this change occurs, the people must remain vigilant, or else we will sink under the weight of what the federal government has done. Signed, Asiwaju Tinubu. Written, January 8, 2012.
Mainland 98.3 FM, the sound of Lagos.
All right, still Political Roundtable, Mainland 98.3 FM. And again, for everyone that patiently listened to that audio recording, which was, of course, the voicing of the article written by the president, then in the opposition in the year 2012, when Jonathan was the president. Again, that article, titled Removal of Oil Subsidy, President Jonathan Breaks Social Contract with the people. Very loaded article, really, addressing critical issues, data, analysis of how things should be done, a clear enumeration of what social contract is when it comes to governance and how the government should be for the people, not on top of the people. That attempt to remove subsidy at that time was tagged Jonathan's tax. So what do we call the removal of subsidy on day one?
Asiwaju tax
of this particular. Again, because of a lot of our listeners who patiently listen to that audio recording, we're going to open the phone lines very, very early. I can also see that a lot of messages are already dropping on our Facebook and YouTube platform, so you can start to drop your messages on Facebook and YouTube while we plan, very soon to open the phone lines. Now,
before you open that
phone line, yes.
When we say certain things here,
yes,
there are those who think that it's because of our political preference
or leanings. Yeah,
I don't have any preference right now.
The elections are gone.
Have come and gone, and we have people that have been elected into different offices to govern. Now, this was an article published in 2012, shortly after the removal of subsidy by former President Jonathan in January. Mm-hmm. And, if you took your time to listen, everything he said in this article are the things he has done. First of all, he said President Jonathan was on top of the people.
Yes, not for
this was the same president who said, let the poor breathe. Take your knees off their necks. He's gone back to do the same thing. Oh, he talked about the social contract being broken, the promise made to the people. He's broken that contract. He talked about the fact that there was no process to the entire removal of subsidy. He did not consider other measures that he condemned the committee, the quality committee that was set up, saying they were going to be paid more money. He himself has set up so many committees to deal with this issue. So you see clearly that there is no sincerity in government or in governance in our country.
The trust deficit, yeah.
And that's why the people are right not to trust anybody. And I hope that he doesn't come out in the future and say he didn't write this, that somebody wrote it for him and put his name.
The article has been fact-checked severally. So.
Of course. I have a copy retained at home. I cut it and put it from the Nation newspaper and put it in my file. Like I have letters written by Obasanjo to Audrogbe and so many
several
other
letters.
So this is the reality. But he has forgotten that these were the things he said then. Mm-hmm. And these are the same things he's doing now. But the chief argument for what he's doing now is that people will say, oh, at the time he wrote that, maybe his understanding was limited. Now that he's in power, he saw things differently. But again, you will understand that he said certain courage just descended on him. So there was no process.
Yeah, he said it at
there was
France.
Quote and unquote, there's no method to this madness. What we're seeing now. Because even madness has got method. But there was no method here. This was just a fluid moment that he just made this announcement. And you know what? Some of his friends came out to say, oh, this is a very courageous president. He did what no president could have done.
But courage, I think, should be methodical, really.
And like I said, look, it was John McCain who said, we have been taught correctly that courage is not the absence of fear.
Yes.
But our capacity to act in spite of our fears. And that's where process comes in. If this president had taken over the office, sat down, hunkered down with some people, and they examined the pros and the cons of the subsidy removal. Don't forget that this is the most important factor in determining the living conditions of the people.
In fact, it's the major issue in all of the conversations here.
It's going
Everything
to
goes
the cost
up.
of transportation.
Everything.
You are bringing food from the farm to the cities.
Yes.
The price will go up.
Yes.
The price of everything will go up.
Has
like you
gone
rightly
up.
said in that article.
Yes.
The jobs you are going to gain in the petroleum
You
sector,
lose.
you will lose in the other sector.
Factories are going to shut down.
And
Cost
we
of
see
living
how
will
manufacturing outfits
Yes.
are running away from the country. How many manufacturing outfits giants have left this country since he became president?
So whatever you are saving, you're going to lose.
But you know what they will tell you? They say, oh, it's their choice. Economy of scale. They are moving to other countries where things are better for them. Why can't you make your country competitive? You understand? Mm-hmm. If there are 10 companies coming to West Africa, why don't you make your country the hub? of the economic activities of these companies. Why lose them to other countries? So the fact is that it's very, very easy to say these things when you are not there. Now that he's there, he's gone back on his word today, and he's saying to those who are reminding him or saying to him, Mr. President, what you are doing is wrong, is treating them like they are lawless people who have no regard for the constitution of this country. And that's not the truth.
Well, Olalekoni, you listen to, we had to really take our time to listen to all of that so that, again, we get the crux of the matter and we're able to get more methodical about the conversation. It was a very long one, but again, an opportunity for us to have a side talk, again, think about some of these issues. And I hope our listeners were also able to, quietly listen to what the position of the president was when he was in the opposition and as Jonathan was attempting to remove fuel subsidy. Again, whether we like it or not, in this conversation of hardship in the land, that's the major issue, really. Yes. Because I remember clearly, Olalekoni, that look, before removal of subsidy, when it was a conversation in the political circle, Ipman, Moman, people in the energy sector, economists, renowned economists kept saying that, look, if we remove subsidy the way we are talking about it, are we ready for what will be the effect of that decision? Because naturally it was going to take the pump price of PMS, which concerns everybody.
Yes.
Unlike all of these rights we are sharing. From 185,
it doesn't concern everybody.
Because it's not everybody.
It doesn't concern those in power. They don't buy food.
Maybe at least ordinary Nigerians. Let me say ordinary Nigerians. That look, are we ready to see a period where Nigerians will begin to buy PMS for average of over 500 naira per liter? As we speak, in some parts of the country, there are people who are buying at 900 naira per liter. It depends on where you stay in the country, really.
Yes.
So Ijebu day is 820.
In the last 2 weeks or so, I've been buying at 850 naira per liter, and I stay here in Lagos. Because again, where you will get it at 585, you have to spend 2-3 hours, and I don't have that luxury of time.
Yes.
So
I just left Ibadan. I told you straight from Ibadan here.
Yes.
Bovas, the only filling
station,
in Ibadan, selling for 650.
So
about 850 in Akure last.
So people have always asked the question: are we ready? Are we planning? And that was why when the article I read from the Business Day newspaper, Lufason was saying that, look, how do you take such a critical decision that was going to have a monumental effect on the people? How do you take such a decision by fiat, without consultation, without preparation, without anything on ground, as against what is even in their own manifesto, as against what was his initial position, as we've just read out?
Did he read the manifesto himself? Somebody wrote it now.
No, you would have. I'm sure they
don't blame him based on manifesto. A committee wrote the manifesto.
But at least he would have read the manifesto.
Didn't know what was even in the manifesto.
So no, but he said would have read it. No,
most politicians don't care about the manifesto.
Yes,
I'm telling you the truth.
But again, when he was
it's not
in
about
France,
him alone.
He said it that, look, the courage came into me.
Yes,
he knew that was not what was in the script. What was in the script? He said, look, I just took the courage. I took the full decision. But again, what we are saying is that, look, can we turn back? Can we reverse this policy? Can we now start? Because again, one of the things Alhaji Atiku Abubakar wrote in one of the things he wrote, I think on Democracy Day to the president, was that pause and reflect. It was one of the suggestions he gave to him that, look, it's time for you to pause these your policies, reflect on them, and then begin to amend them. Maybe not a complete U-turn.
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
If Atiku Abubakar were to be the president,
yes,
and he had introduced subsidy on day one,
yes,
Atiku Abubakar will not listen to himself.
So he will still be. It's the same position.
Look, in Africa and especially in Nigeria, presidents see reversals of policy as weakness. That's the problem.
So are we going to say Biden is weak, for example?
Even when it's easy when you're on the other side,
yes, to criticize.
You know what the ace will say?
That's the easiest thing to do.
Mr. President, you have to be stable and firm.
And show courage.
And show courage. That's not courage. That's cowardice.
I said it at the beginning that there are many people around the president who have been saying, don't give any speech. Don't do any nationwide.
But give the speech.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
So is it possible? Look, you mentioned Yaradua with electoral reforms.
Yes.
Who benefited from a fraudulent electoral process.
And then decided to change the situation.
I'm sure there are aides around him who would have told him, Mr. President, if you do this, your legitimacy means you are challenging your own legitimacy.
Yes.
So, but can't we have that selflessness?
I will explain it to you. There are moments in the life of an individual. You see, every president and every human being want to leave a legacy.
Yes.
some can be deliberate about their legacies, and some can dig deep
To bring it out.
to bring it out. Now, what happens in a situation like this is that unless you find a man who has the internal conviction to say, I am going to rise above my primordial interests, and what I am going to uphold is the larger interests of the people and country. If that cannot happen, do you understand?
Yes.
That man will continue to listen to those around him. I once said something. Every president needs to have two categories of people.
Around him.
Those who are constantly praising him because you don't want him to be depressed all the time.
Just motivation.
And those who are constantly telling him, Mr. President, just pause and think again.
Yeah.
Pause and reflect. Okay? In other words, that president does not need to listen to Wasiu Ayinde alone. He has also got to listen to Idris Abdulkarim so that there can be a balance.
Balance, yeah.
But what we find in our own local environment,
They surround themselves with the praise singers
Wasiu,
alone, yeah.
the people who praise them alone. So if you point out any inadequacy,
They say you are the enemy
or
of the
you point
government.
out a different direction and say, Mr. President, we have to get this done. We think that what you are doing right now is
The
not
opposition.
achieving the purpose.
You are
You
an
understand?
opposition.
Then you become an enemy. You become an opposition, and it's worse if you have lost the election before, because
You say you are a bad loser. You are a sore loser. All right. I think we need to open the phone lines now. The line is buzzing. Again, we do have to do this early to take a lot of contributions. Again, we've kept a lot of our listeners for longer than usual. You know, we had to add a whole 1 hour to this so that we can take contributions. Again, every other conversation has been dwarfed in the last 1 week or so. It's been about this protest, the reaction of the government, the long-awaited speech of the president, because there have been calls for him to speak to Nigerians. He eventually did this morning, and it's been what we have been trying to dissect on the roundtable this evening. We have Barrister Curtis Adigba in the studio. We have Olalekan in the studio. And the line is officially open for us to start to take your calls and contributions. You can also still continue to drop your comments and contributions on our Facebook and YouTube platform. We have enough time today, really, because the show ends by 9 o'clock today. So we'll try and read out all the messages. But I'll beg you, please, make your messages short.
No insults.
And no insults, please. Yes. But make it very short so that we can quickly read the messages. The longer the message, the more difficult it is really for us to go through all of the messages. But let's just start to take the calls now. 09136 0000410. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Your name and where are you calling from? 1 minute for every caller this evening.
My name is Ade. I'm calling from White Sand.
Ade from White Sand. Please go on, sir.
Yes. Mr. Fuad, thank you very much. By faculty.
Thank you.
I'm an ordinary mechanic.
Yeah.
The problem of this Nigeria, I understand it very well. Very well. I don't have opportunity to go to school. I go just away from my school. But I can tell you the problem of this country. Mr. President got it wrong this morning when he made the speech. He didn't even talk about the Nigeria problem, which is corruption. That is in our national assembly, all those senators, all those ministers, all those Mongo above their amount they are collecting. He didn't even mention, he didn't even talk to that place. Corruption. Like what? Look at the Yaya bill, the governor of education. He didn't even show anything about all those things. We are joking in this country. I'm telling you, we are joking in this country. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ade from White Sand. It's a mechanic, but I like.
Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening. Yeah, good evening.
Good evening. This is Malam Salah.
Oh, Malam Salah, how are you doing? Yes.
Oh, very well, and you, sir?
I'm good, sir.
Oga Barista, good evening, all of you, sir.
Good evening.
Oga Ford,
Yes.
this speech is empty as far as I'm concerned, sir.
The address of the president today?
It's very, very empty. It's empty because he only appraised himself and his performance, which you cannot see. We are talking of hunger, we are talking of hardship, we are talking of fuel subsidy. But for me, it's not a surprise because he makes it very clear one of the dinner that Lagos State organized for him immediately when he took office. You know, he makes it very clear there that people want to protest because Labour was threatening to go on strike that time. The people are threatening that they will go on strike because of reduced subsidy. They will protest style. he can't remove subsidy. I mean, he can't reverse subsidy. You understand?
Yes.
So as far as I'm concerned, the protest must go on because there is nothing now. Nothing. He has not addressed the problem that people are protesting for. What we are expecting him is that if he cannot, let him acknowledge that yes, there is subsidy. This is number one. Two, in fact, let him now reverse this idea of this tariff or electricity, whatever. You get me?
Yes.
So that at least people will guarantee to have work to do. People are losing their job on daily basis. You understand?
I'm with you.
This is for number one. Number two, if Yaradua is alive, do you know that he cannot implement that electoral law that that West report. He can't implement it.
But we can't say
he
that
can't
because the report came out and it didn't stay too long to be able to. We can't say. Remember, Malam Salau, that was one president that reduced the price of PMS. I think he's the only one in record.
Excellent, perfectly by 10 naira, excellently.
He was the only one that was able to do that. Yeah.
Yes, sir. But on this West report, you know why he cannot reverse it?
Why?
You mean he can't implement it?
Yes.
It's very simple. You know, during that time that Adam Oshomole took over Mimiko or whatever. But when it comes to election of Ikiti, you know, the INEC commissioner, the returning officer, you know that woman Kerele or whatever. The INEC that disappeared, that she's a born again. She cannot
declare results that is false. Yes.
Yaradua was alive in his office. They declared the woman wanted to come back and finish her job. You understand? So
all right, Madam Salah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,
all
sir.
right.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
You so much,
You're welcome. You're welcome.
09136000410. Hello, good evening. Hello. All right, 09136000410. Hello, good evening.
Hello, good evening, Mr. Fuad.
Yes, good evening.
This is Mohammed Abbas from Ikeja.
Yes, Mr. Mohammed Abbas. Please go on.
Yeah, good evening, Barista.
Thank you. Good evening.
Yeah. So, actually, I don't want to say anything, but I have to speak.
You need to speak louder, Mohammed Abbas. You need to speak louder. I'm struggling to hear you.
All right. Okay. Can you hear me very well now?
Yeah, better.
Okay. All right. So, I was there at the protest ground today, so I came back home later in the evening. So, we will continue to protest. And then, look at the president's speech. He doesn't capture any of the issues that we are protesting for. So it's completely ignorant. You're going to ignore us completely. So that means he's not even ready to address this issue. So for me, I can't even wait for 2027. And I am very happy that our people came out and everybody shared that we can't take this and we don't want this man anymore. You can see the banners of APC everywhere. They're bringing it down. They want their offices to rest.
But that's violent. That's violent and it's wrong. That's one of the things we've been complaining about. You don't need to bring down people's posters or burn offices. Mohammed Abbas. If you say you are waiting to 2027, then peaceful and wait till the elections.
Yeah, but we cannot continue with this hunger. Has to do something
I
about
want to plead with you, wherever you are, and to all the people you know, appeal to them to be peaceful in the course of the protest. Once we become violent, we give them the excuse to take innocent lives. This is a democracy. They have acknowledged it, that the people have the right to protest. So please, be peaceful. Don't bring down any poster. Don't attack anybody. Just conduct yourself in a peaceful manner, please.
All right. Thank you so much, Mohammed Abbas. Please, protest, not violence, please. Hello, good evening.
Yes, a very good evening to all the panel in the studio.
Nice.
Thank you, my dear. You see, in fact, as what you said in that, what Sandra read for us, yes, he said it then. And, when we talk of fuel in this country, when Obasanjo come on board, it was 20 naira. Before Obasanjo left for it, increased to 70 naira. It is here that 35 weeks back to 65. And that for 65, Jonathan take it to 145. And at the end of the day, after protest, argument here and there, he reduced it to 95 or 93. So, none of them take it of officially, and the present president, if he leave it, that it should be taken care by that money brought into the country, we will be buying a liter of fuel at 115 or 120, the way we buy diesel or kerosene. It means they may call it intervention, subsidy still remain. When you are buying at 650 in Lagos or 850, what are the remaining? It means subsidy still remain. Nobody has taken it finally.
But Prince Wise, before the president came in, what was the price of a liter of PMS petrol?
Before he came in,
yes,
is it not around 185?
185. And when he removed subsidy, according to him, he went to what price?
You go to 580. That is when he thought it would be finally.
So he thought. Wait, Prince Wise, do you now believe that there's a problem with the thought process? If you said he thought and something else is happening.
Excuse me. They removed subsidy before Mr. President come on board because there's no budget for it.
Okay,
only
so
what they are telling Mr. President.
Why did he say that subsidy is gone?
If it has been removed, why is the one that pronounced that it's gone?
And then accepted that he removed it.
I've been talking for 1 hour. Allow me to say, please.
We are having a conversation with you.
You are not arguing with me now.
We are not arguing with you.
Let me.
We are engaging your thought process. That's what we are doing.
Very good of you. You know, when there's no something for this, and they say something has gone, which some of us, we say, no, let Dangote come on board before you do something finally. But it has done. But after this, the money that's coming now from subsidy removal, how did they spend the money? That's the question we have to find out now, to tell the governor, to tell Mr. President. Wasting spending is not allowed, but the money you are now making, listen to the fellow of the country. Whether I say, can you tell me today, when Obasanjo was around, what infrastructure did started our commissions? Laksa Jonathan. But even though we want to crucify Buhari, he has started some projects and commission before he left office. Well, okay. But all these things we are talking before, we are not talking of rice 7,000 naira. Have we not seen it now? Only it's very painful. But in future, if we believe Nigeria will still get better.
All right.
That's my stand.
Thank you, Prince Wise. I do know that there's no president that would not list one or two projects started and commissioned. It's impossible. From President Obasanjo, even governors would have one or two projects. So it's impossible to say none of them started anything and completed anything.
Deny them. At least so many of them will commission new government houses.
Yes. And his project.
Yes. Even governors in some states will do bus stops.
And it's a project, we have to
commission bus stops.
All right, 09136 0000410. Hello, good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, this is calling from Abuja.
Yes, Gege Joshua, please go.
See, you talked about something today as to our electoral process. See,
yes,
I am a member of this body of youth who organized that Abuja protest. In fact, I was telling them, I said, see, to end the problem of Nigeria, we need to start from our electoral process. Some of them said, no, INEC must go, INEC chairman must go. You know, I said, see, it's not all about INEC chairman. See, Oga Fuad, go to local area, go to rural areas in Nigeria. Before they vote on election day, some of them will be sitting waiting for money to come.
Thank you.
Some of them will not even vote, not until money comes.
Money comes.
Yes. You understand? So people are saying INEC. I say if the problem is INEC, why are politicians paying huge amount of money to buy votes?
Yes.
And they don't want to understand. You know, one problem I see about this youth is that they recognize that there is a problem. But they
Solution
don't
to the problem is the problem.
Okay, where is the problem coming from and how do we resolve it? They just want to tackle it from the head. Okay, remove INEC chairman, go and bring Jesus.
Simple.
I'm telling you, people will still manipulate, people will still buy, they have the money.
Yes.
People are hungry in this country now. Will you give somebody, 100,000 and vote for me? And the person will say, no. Someone that is hungry, that his children are crying at home, that daddy, I want to eat.
Well,
they are giving 100,000 and vote for me.
You mentioned 5,000. Is the Boko Sebe 2,000?
They say
2,000,
I'm telling you.
They say you collect money, you vote to go and make soup.
And now the Boko Sebe, that's what I just said.
And if you don't bring this money, these people will not vote.
To apply for a form for a local government councillor to successfully run the election to campaign.
Yes.
Okay, Fuad, you need to go and borrow money.
You are right.
So are you not telling me that I will borrow money and run the election and I will not look for how to recover my money and pay the people that lend me the money?
Mm-hmm.
You know, this youth, I really pity for this country because we are not. I don't see us going anywhere for now.
Well, thank you, Gege Joshua. That's why we're talking about electoral reforms.
And see, this thing this guy just mentioned, these are
major problems. Hello, good evening.
Hello, Oga Fuad.
Good evening, yes.
I greet you.
I greet
Barrister Curtis.
Yes.
I greet all the men in the house.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Your name,
all
sir?
the men in the house. I greet you. My name is Dan P. from Igondo.
Dan P, please go on.
You asked a very simple question.
Yes.
Sometimes some callers will come, citing these people as if they have a special market where they go and buy their own goods. When these people came into power, we have many multinational companies that employed hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. Now, where are the multinational companies? They are all gone. Everybody is running. No job. When this man came into power, there were jobs. Now, no fuel. To buy fuel now, they are selling now in Igondo, 850 naira per liter. Now, bag of rice is 110,000 naira. Now, millions of youth are unemployed.
But his bag of rice
now, there is no security.
It depends on where it's buying.
Now, no, tell me. Now, why will people not come outside and protest?
They'll tell you, must you eat rice?
When we went to protest at Toyota, they stabbed me.
Oh, you came to they stabbed you? Was it today?
Yes. Counter protest.
Is it today?
The people.
Today?
Yes.
Okay, because we got the information that some thugs caused problem in Ojota today. Yes, that was the report we got. Yeah,
I'm with you tomorrow again. I'm going again tomorrow.
Please be careful, please.
Let me tell you something. Tomorrow, we are ready for them.
Mm-hmm.
We have already gang up ourselves. We are not doing violence, but we are going for them. This government has nothing to offer at all. Too many poverty. Even if you are working sometimes, if you are working, you'll be afraid. So that they will not, people will not rob you.
All right, thank you,
People are angry. This APC are failed us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dampi. I think we got some reports.
But
I think it was even,
From what he said
yes.
people, APC has failed them. And the truth of the matter is this. The only way you can remove APC is through ballot.
Through ballot, yes.
That's not violence. We are ready for them.
We understand that it's within your right to protest, and like I've said,
we are ready for them. This APC must go. Wait till 2027.
We actually got some reports, and I think it was even published in the Vanguard newspaper today.
I think this whole idea of that people have to wait to remove a bad government during elections.
We run a democracy.
No, that's not what. Look. Democracy is a living and breathing thing.
Yes.
And you can put up resistance. Just don't be violent.
Yes.
But how do we put on the resistance?
Look, people have the right to protest government policy. You don't even have to. You can wake up from your house and put your placard up. We've seen that happen.
Of course, yes.
But yet the problem is that even this current government, that we know key actors in this government that have funded protests in the past, sent people to other parts of the country to protest before, now see protests as a crime.
Well, but I think we've been able to clear everything around your right to protest as a Nigerian.
Yes. No,
but for regime change,
you did. No,
yes.
Nobody. Look, we said it here, and I'm going to repeat it.
Yes.
Nobody is calling for burning down of the country. Nobody is asking for a regime change. People are just asking the government to look into their difficult living conditions. And the reason why you are having some of this violence in other parts of the country is that the government does not believe that they even have the right to do that.
Let
me ask you, let me answer. In Abuja, what happened? The FCT minister said nobody should come out and go near Eagle Square. That there's a court judgment that says they have to go. Stadium. They just have to go to the National Stadium.
Yes.
And that's, you cannot tell people. The people have a right to move around constitutionally.
So far, they remain peaceful about it.
As long as they remain peaceful. And if they were moving around and we saw them on TV, they were not disruptive. They were not doing anything. Not until the police went there and started throwing tear gas.
Okay.
You get the point that I'm making?
Yes.
So allow people, if they are conducting themselves in peaceful manner, allow them to move around. The whole idea of throwing tear gas at them, and then you create that rowdiness to take advantage and then begin to shoot at people. Then you say they were violent. And now we're seeing pro-government protesters being bused to locations to attack anti-government protesters. That is wrong.
Well, Olanikan, you wanted to say something to this idea.
In fact, I'm actually reacting to, and we've also seen on social media in different, times since last week or 2 weeks ago, where people have made, some threats,
inflammatory statements,
statements about all of that, and that's why even we also saw one on Lagospedia. This I was talking about Igbo people should leave.
I think the president addressed that in his speech, which was fantastic, really for me.
And we also seen people who have said that, we've seen on Twitter where people said that, Sowolu's family house, blah, blah, and all of that.
So, we've said it, and especially on this platform. Anybody that brings ethnicity into the conversation.
To have deviance
in
every sector.
And that's exactly why
what overcomes
government was even talking about procession.
What overcomes such deviancy or that attitude is the generosity of the spirit of majority of the people.
Yes.
Look, this whole idea of people saying Igbos must leave Lagos is not a new thing. In fact, one of the biggest promoters of this idea is in the presidency. Issuing our state, Nanuga. You go to his Twitter handle. You see this is there.
The statements,
Yes. So it's not just enough to do a general condemnation.
No, I
speak to specific issues.
Yes, I think that one of the things was that, you see, some of the reasons government, for me, I never saw where government said no protest and all of these things. They were always saying that let's dialogue, and that's one of the things the president said in his speech as well. And let's just
the dialogue. What about the option of dialogue that the president talked about?
I
the protest can snowball
into violence. So why not dialogue?
And we saw what happened in Kano and all of this.
Let's distill this statement.
Yes,
and I think people are leaving out the critical part of the democracy we claim to be practicing. What is the job of the police in the first place?
The president mentioned it.
Is to maintain law
and order.
Yes.
Now, how does the police do that? If a group of people say we are out to protest and we are coming out to protest peacefully, it becomes the duty of the police to secure that protest.
Which they did.
No, that's not what they are doing. That's not what we saw.
Okay, what we saw in Lagos was
what. Look, I'm not talking about Lagos.
Okay.
For the better part or for the most part of it, the protest in Lagos was peaceful.
Yes.
The people conducted themselves.
And the security operatives too. But Professor Wale Soyinka issued a statement today, and it was clear as to how he felt disappointed that the president did not address the high-handedness of the police in some parts of the country to the protesters.
High-handedness. Amnesty International came out to
with also their report, which
about what we know and what we saw.
That people died and all of that.
The commissioner of police,
addressed
the people and say, so long as you conduct yourself
peacefully,
we are going to be with you. We know it is your right.
But don't you think?
Don't
you think like?
That's not what happened
But don't you think that, for example, in Abuja, statements like, "Oh, there's no room for protest in Abuja," by the FCT minister could have also aggravated things.
What about
the first day? I think there was an event on the first day of the protest.
Yes.
And where the FCT minister Wiki also spoke about you can protest just.
But there are two cases that I can affirm, and that can never be denied. Fact checked.
Yes.
As at yesterday, when some of the protesters now gathered at the entrance of the MK Abiola Stadium in Abuja, they were tear gassed and dispersed from that location.
I didn't say that.
But I'm just saying that we have good authority, and even today in Lagos. Yes.
Okay, so who escorted the people that were bussed
in Abuja? They came in buses here.
To launch a counter protest, and my
at
position.
The National Stadium.
No.
On the streets of
Abuja.
Okay. And this is my position, that the police has a duty to protect both pro-government protesters
and the
anti-government protesters.
Everybody should be protected.
I don't even see them as anti-government, as long as you're
speaking truth to power.
No, for me, I don't see them as anti-government.
But I'm just telling you that is the reading of those in government. Because the chief argument on the side of the government is that the protest can be hijacked by undesirable elements.
Yes.
And that these are.
And you know what I say to
them? We have also seen it happen.
But you know what I say to them? We did not cancel any election
on the threat of violence.
On the threat of violence. So if elections can hold with the potential for violence, why can't we hold protests? Yes.
With violence.
No. For the security should do their job.
Yes.
No, the security operatives should do their
Didn't
job.
government deploy security men to ensure that we didn't have violence during election?
I remember that the height of the IPOB agitation on non-government in Anambra,
they conducted election
without a single gunshot. Even at the height of Boko Haram in Borno State, elections were conducted. But did the security operatives do their work despite the threats of violence? So why not for protest?
You see, at the end of the day, if you look at all of these things,
yes,
at the end of the day, it's political. You might not agree, and that's why government will make accusations
and counter accusations too.
Counter accusations from both sides.
Both sides.
When I say both sides, people in government and people in
the opposition.
If politicians don't play politics, what would they play?
Yes,
they
so
have to play politics.
Government will say protest the anti, are sponsored by people who are sore losers. And people from the other side will say that government is
sponsored But what do you make of people protesting against a protest, even with vests
politics,
on?
now I said it.
So it's just politics.
Even people who are protesting, some people will tell you that it's politics as well. So somebody called now and said that this APC government will face them.
Okay, let me tell you something.
Political as well.
It's very political. I agree. And I've
I've
always told them
it's
that
political.
Yeah, okay.
So some people will tell you that the reason why I've told people. Look at me, for example. If you ask me from now to tomorrow, I'll tell you that I'm not going out to protest. But I've told people, I said, it is possible that if I'm maybe we are not in government and all of that.
When you're in the opposition, maybe you'll be out there protesting.
For me, personally, I won't even go out to protest. But I might be silent.
But I need to address one issue, and which is the issue of opposition politicians. I think people need to understand that it's not the job of the opposition to praise those in government.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
It is the job of the opposition to hold their feet to the fire.
Exactly. Of course, yes. Keep them on their toes.
And it is in exposing the inadequacies of the ruling government that the opposition can get to power.
So there's nothing problematic with politics.
No,
okay.
There is nothing wrong with politicians.
I think the government.
And there's also nothing wrong from government saying that, or is it wrong from government saying that what we have now, what we are experiencing, is being sponsored by.
No, but if they
because if the opposition gets into government,
let me tell you what is wrong with it. Let me tell you what is wrong with it.
Okay.
In Nigeria today, we don't even have opposition. The opposition is the people themselves.
We do.
Because let me tell you, the LP, the Labour Party or the PDP, has not offered a viable alternative.
But Atiku is doing.
Look, Atiku is speaking as an individual, and it's not Atiku who is mobilizing Nigerians.
Former president.
Nigerians are reacting to their pains.
But what I find faulty about the government thinking it's all about politics, really, or trying to play politics with this issue, is that if they over concentrate on politics or the political conversation around this protest, the crux of the matter will be lost. They might not even really attend to the agitations of the people.
Because they just say that it's
political. You see, that is their convenient way of
deflecting on the real issues,
of explaining away and deflecting
on
the real issue.
Yes.
The fact is that the policies that got us to where we are,
they initiated it.
Were not policies that Peter Obi or Atiku introduced.
They introduced it.
Which they said they will introduce anyway.
But they are not the ones in power.
But you see, you have to listen to them when they say they were going to introduce. They had methods scripted,
which even the APC had too.
Peter Obi said he was going to remove subsidy. However, he will first of all investigate the subsidy.
But that's even real.
Even if it doesn't
that's where the problem is. So Tinubu also said
the same thing. They did something different.
If Tinubu wasn't in government,
what Tinubu said.
The manifesto page 37.
I will remove subsidy and I'm going to win this election.
No.
But he also talked about the manifesto said faces. Yeah.
Yes, now.
It will be done in faces. So what you are saying is that maybe Peter Obi would have done something different too.
That's where our problem is. So if Tinubu wasn't in government, he would have been showing us that page 37 also.
I would have done it in faces. So
I would have done it.
Okay, all right. Let's.
It's a leadership
problem. I agree with you.
It's a systemic problem.
I think it's a trust problem. Trust in the sense that people just say things that are convenient for them to win elections.
Exactly.
And then go and do a different
I agree,
thing.
sir.
All right. Okay. Let's start to take the messages.
And then when you remind them, they say you are enemy of the country.
Well,
listen, please.
It's still Political Roundtable Mainland 98.3 FM. Let's quickly deal with some of the messages we have on Facebook, and then come back to taking phone calls. We have Abdurrafiu Alaba. Sorry, I may not be able to read very long messages. I'll try and just take a part of it. Good evening, honorable men in the studio. Alabalakpe from Sabo Ijewoniba Ojo. Well done for your every Sunday Tony giving to Nigerians. Good job, you guys. I haven't said that. I want to beg you guys to digest all submissions of the president very well. Some of your responses this evening not aligning with what the man had said today. I did a summary of everything the president said. It depends, maybe a perceptual issue for you, but that's fine. He also said that Barrister Adigba and other guys there in the studio, we must please make use of this great platform like this to calm people, not to instigate against the leaders. Let us, all of us, also get 1 or 2 farms around us to ease the noise of being power syndrome. If Fuad Said can have 1 farm at his back, also my big Barrister Adigba also have 1 farm and others, the pressure will reduce. Let's be patient with Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Inshallah, he won't disappoint Nigerians. He's talking about us having farms.
I have my farm.
Okay.
I don't know if he has it, but my farm
I'm planning to have one.
My
now.
farm cannot feed all Nigerians.
But I only want to plant vegetable. I only want to do vegetable.
Oh, you want to follow in the footsteps of the first lady?
I didn't say that. I'm just saying. All right. We have Basil Chika saying, so Tinubu hunger protest address was so empty and annoying, and it shows that he doesn't really care or know what it means for one to be hungry. Instead of him to talk of modalities to bring to an end the economic hardship, he kept on telling Nigerians what he would do as if he's still campaigning. My advice to my fellow agitators is to keep the light on until he does the right thing by reversing all the bad policies he put in place. Oladekoni, he talked about lifting import duties on food,
yes,
rice, beans. Do you think that would have some effect as to the issue of hunger?
Well, he said 6 months, so definitely it will be, a short-term solution.
So what about this idea of sharing rice, moving rice around 40,000? Have you seen anywhere that rice is being sold for 40,000?
Now, when you declare this rice, this thing doesn't just come the same day.
It will take like how long should Nigerians wait?
Hold on. How long did it take?
In fact, some of these rice are imported.
Hold on, my brother.
Yes,
how long did it take for the government to announce the renovation of the vice president residence
and get it completed?
It was in the 2024 budget. They didn't complete it. We are renovating vice president residence, and the thing just came today now.
So, the welfare of the
people. It was in months.
Hold on. The welfare of the people is not in the budget?
No, it was. So why
is it going to take too long?
If not too long, it was announced last week.
Yes.
And so we don't know what this week we hold.
So we should wait and see whether
palliatives. Each time the president announces the palliative, the thing doesn't just jump in the state.
So you think it's going to help?
State government actually, they gave an account of how the 20 trucks of rice that was given to the state for palliative was.
But the idea of 20 trucks really.
This is actually the problem.
Yes.
In my own opinion, the president doesn't need to give palliative to the states. You are giving them more than enough money. In your own broadcast, you alluded to the fact that
you're giving them
570 billion.
You understand?
The federal
so
allocation.
What is the let them use the funds that they have.
But the issue is that even these governors, even the federal allocation that has increased, the 570 billion naira, is not reflecting in the lives of the people.
So don't you now think?
And I agree
that people who have told the president that, look, instead of subsidizing rice as he's doing now, because if you say you're going to buy it at 40,000 naira, it means rice is now being subsidized by the government, and then this all money you are giving to the governors, why don't you leave the money on subsidy on PMS?
The money is not going to be enough to pay subsidy.
So listen,
how much is subsidy?
It's like it's like what this American comedian said.
Yes,
Chris Rock. That you go to Subaru, and then they say to you, every Subaru you buy, you will give $250 to a charity of your choice. And he asked a simple question: why don't you leave the money in my own pocket so I can use it myself? Part of what the president is taking from our pockets,
yes,
he can reverse them back to our pockets.
Maybe partial return.
Instead of waiting on governors or some other people to reach out to us, he needs to reduce the tariffs, because the supply of electricity does not justify
the amount people are now paying, especially the band A customers. Yes.
Yes.
If you're in band A?
Yes.
Are you in band A?
I'm in bandit A, not band A.
Okay, you are bandit A.
Because it's the bandit.
So how many hours?
There are times I don't have light for. I've written about it so many times throughout the whole night.
Band A?
Yes.
Okay, but Lolekoni, people have also. What do you say to people who also have said that? Look, I think the president has addressed the nation since becoming president like 5 times, 4 or 5 times. About 5. The inaugural address. I think there was also one address when this whole issue of hardship.
I think that's one. That's where
the inaugural address, the second address, Democracy Day address.
Okay.
And I think
those ones are statutory now.
But he's been addressing us.
Okay.
And
May 29th.
And May 20th. What people are saying, Olalekon, is that in all of this address of the president, there's never been a time where he mentioned our refineries as the president.
No, he mentioned. I think that one that has to do with
mention our refineries in what context?
Billion, that refineries will work. That one.
There's been a time that he has specifically
check. That one when the subsidy was
don't you
on.
think today was also one opportunity for him to talk to Nigerians about the clear timelines as to when our refineries can work?
I was even expecting that, the bailout in court
yes.
was given to the Dangote refinery about giving crude and all of
People
that.
are saying that crude may not come.
That is some inconvenient truth to the president because you see, we know that there were some subterfuge around the Dangote thing. Yeah, because there are people who were not comfortable with it, who prefer that we continue to import.
Yes.
And so they went out there trying to demarcate the product that was here to hit the market. I mean, that is here to hit the market. And it took the intervention of the president
to give directives.
To give directive. I mean, these are things that shouldn't be happening in the first place. Why would the NNPC decide to lock out
our own local refinery?
Yes. I mean, so when you look at that's where the lack of genuine interest in the affairs.
So don't you think today was a good day for the president to really go into that issue, break it down, and begin to sell?
You have 23 minutes. Break it down. That's Mr. Fuad.
When they say break it down, he spoke about other issues. That could have been one of the major issues. Don't you think?
I said so. In fact, I also said
I don't blame him for not talking about the Dangote
and even the refineries.
What I thought the president had one assignment today to calm frayed nerves.
Now, did he do that?
To say to them, listen, I hear you clearly, like he said, and these are the steps I will be taking from this moment to deal with the issues that you have raised, right? Instead, he pivoted to talking about his achievements. The same achievements that has not impacted anyway on the lives of the people. At least we have not seen it. And he also accepted the fact that the impacts of those reforms have not been seen yet. And asked Nigerians to be patient more. And this is where the problem lies.
Okay, all right.
Instead of addressing those...
Just like you said at the beginning that this that address, addressed, but the president, I feel and I believe that the president and his handlers believed that the speech today, the address today, addressed the issues, and that's why he rolled out.
What
for
he
example,
believes is different from what the people.
There was a statement you made at the beginning. I can't remember.
There's no statement can capture everybody's
everything. Yes.
But what I'm saying is that the president had, in my own opinion, he had just one goal today. And what was that goal? Calm.
And he did do that.
Nerves.
Now, today, even
what he did was to inflame them because the fact that he didn't connect
really
with them,
the issues.
He didn't care about their feelings.
But from my own, findings and what I know, what the president came to do today was that, which might be wrong, and to them is right, is that you wanted me to talk.
I've spoken to you. What about the call for dialogue, Mr. Cole? Did he not calm, strain nerves?
This
He
president,
didn't, because people have released statement now that I saw just end bad governance just
ready to dialogue.
Ready to dialogue, and these are just people. I saw a video.
I think some of them also agree with the police
today. Yes, there was a video that came out today.
Look, in a democracy, you have no alternative to dialogue. It's when dialogues break down that people then resort
to other means.
So I think that the call for dialogue is a step forward, but there has to be a dialogue that is based on good faith,
tangible things.
A dialogue that is based on the fact that the president is prepared to yield ground. You cannot just, these things are not cast in iron.
All right. Okay, let's quickly take these messages, because we have Kabiru Adegbero saying, good evening, Ogafuan, and your guests in the studio. You see, if the president really knew what the protesters are asking for, in the paragraph 31 of his speech, he should take active steps now to make the citizens feel positive impact now. God bless my country, Nigeria. We have Unwundu Austin saying, Tinubu removed subsidy on petrol and floated the naira at the same time. Who does that? We have that are saying, good evening, crew. You can't build your houses on lies, eye service, and propaganda, hypocrisy, and expect it to prosper. It won't. You can see them running from pillar to post, trying to stop protests. If they had channeled all this energy in giving the right policies, cutting cost of governance, investment in education, not student loans, solving security, the farmers can farm that there won't be food shortage to avoid this nightmare where today, for this government intimidating the people using police, agbero. Okay, well, I said I'm going to cut long messages. We just edit long messages. We have Christopher Effiong saying, good evening, everyone in the studio. God bless you guys for the good work. I don't know what Nigerians are going to do again to be free from this slavery. We came together 2020, we seek for freedom, then we called it NSAS. Federal government said, okay, thank you so much for Mr. President Tinubu's speech. Is the same sweet speech as usual. We go nowhere with this speech. That is my personal opinion. You say your own. After all, there's freedom of speech. God helps Nigeria. We have Michael Oria saying, good evening, everyone and the guests. The administration cannot carry out effective and efficient electoral reforms because they are the major beneficiaries of a defective electoral system. If our electoral system is working as expected, most of these elected leaders will not be there. And that's coming from Professor Mike in Yale, United States of America. We have John Bernardo. We say, my question is, are you sure this article is from President Tinubu back in 2012? Because the same president has just done the same thing the article was preaching against. We also have Chijoke Azu. We saying, I heard you loud and clear, has become a cliche with the APC. Yeah, they always acted as if they had nothing. Buhari or Shimbaju now Tinubu have used the same statement. He described the protest as violent in his first paragraphs and believes the protest was sponsored by his political opponent instead of hunger, killings, and hopelessness. But then, I feel the organizers should agree with him, dialogue with him one-on-one, not Wike, Shetima, Bayo Onanuga, or any appointee, and see what he has to offer. Okay, thank you so much, Chijoke from Isolo. And then we have Jonathan Martin, to be great, who was an interesting, very comical contribution here. And he says, summary of the speech. That's the speech of the president. I have heard you. I am busy working. Go back home. Subsidy is gone. Forget it. Continue to endure the hardship and hunger. Your protest is politically motivated. Thank you for listening. That's his own summary.
But that's a reasonable summary. That's reasonable. As comical as it sounds,
yeah.
That's the structure of the speech.
Summary of the speech. I have heard you. I'm busy working. Go back home. Subsidy is gone. Is forever gone. Forget it. Continue to endure the hardship and hunger. Your protest is politically motivated. Thank you for listeing.
You know, I was just afraid to look at the speech that way. But I said in essence that it wasn't like, look, he could have thrown a red meat to the people and say, yeah. Okay, but what he did was to tiptoe around
the issues and then
flexing muscle and saying, look, but I'm the president and I'm not going to stand by and see you misbehave in this country. I'm guilty.
All right, we have Tony Ajishegiri saying, Tony Ajishegiri saying, I wonder how the mind of an average Nigerian politician works. Very baffling. Even in taking the pride in removing fuel subsidy under recovery still exists. Even in floating the naira to unify the exchange rate, we still have more different rates than what existed before. So what Tinubu ended up doing is to make Nigerians poorer by robbing them to put so much money in the pockets of politicians and their stooges. And perhaps he may not have been told, as a result of his poorly thought out economic policies and the terrible implementation and methodology, all Nigerians can see is hunger, insecurity, hyperinflation, the flamboyance and profligacy of the political elite. What an achievement. And then we have the world. Who is saying this speech, whilst I was reading it at some point, I found it difficult to believe it was written in 2012 because it was like our now president as 2012 was Nostradamus, who could see the future but refused to take advice who refused to take advice to avert the negative consequences if removed of the subsidy, knowing things would go south quickly if the subsidy was removed without fiscal and economic policies that would absorb the negative effects of the removal of subsidy and the floating of the naira. We have Etel Ugba saying the person that wrote this speech for President Tinubu must be a prophet. This is a direct happening of his government. Etel Ugba from Shogunle. We have Olu Omoakin saying the article is just a prophecy about the president himself that came to pass. Sean Johnson, it's very sad that our president has a very deep and conscious insight to removal of the subsidy in 2012 and only now be the one to remove the subsidy without considering the state of the economy. Even if there were pressure from the West to remove the subsidy, it would have been done systematically. We have John Benjamin saying, kudos to all of you in the studio and happy Sunday to you, sir. The definition of wickedness and evil, okay, that's right, that's not for radio. We have Dami Gold, saying, "Good evening, wonderful men in the studio. It's very shocking and absolutely unbelievable that someone who had reason deeply to put up that sensible speech in 2012 is now in power, working completely contrary to his speech and ideas. Could it be a product of old age or deliberate? Okay, are we certain that the same one? Okay, all right. He has gone south again with his statement. We have Fred A. Isua saying Nigeria is becoming unbelievable for human beings to live in. The hardship is too much. We have Shegun David Emmanuel saying, well, scorecard released, more promises added to the avalanche of unfulfilled campaign promises. The specific plans to tackle insecurity no specific plans to tackle insecurity was mentioned. By and large, nothing was said to immediately alleviate the excruciating hardship that we've not had before. The president said a lot of things without saying anything. The same rhetoric, the same thing Buhari said for 8 years. No specific points or solutions to solve the hardship and calm the protest. The president handlers are not doing him any favor to tackle the challenges of the country. It's a very long message. I'm sorry I won't be able to take all the message. We have Chris Nwalem saying the audio you play revealed the hypocrisy of our politicians in Nigeria. Is Nigeria better under him now than the government of Jonathan? Is this how to govern a nation? People are hungry and angry, and you are suffocating the masses with anti-people policies. When will there be food security in the country? Where will the farmers be able to go back to farm without the menace of the terrorists? When can we buy a bag of rice for 6K again? When will the elderly be able to buy their medication?
The boss has left the station.
This 6K is...
that one is not coming back.
Yeah, 6K is not realistic. Jide Martin saying, good evening, gentlemen. Nigerians should not expect anything from this administration when we are in for the worst. Frank Emega saying, good evening, men in the studio. Mr. President, keep telling us about Lagos Calabar Road. That is all he has done so far. The people of Nigeria, he said quite a whole lot of things. Anyways, Alabama, they saying, well done. We have Larry Olakomi saying, good evening to you all in the studio. The most important thing is for us to have free, credible, and fair election. Any one of you there might not be able to perform miracle if you are elected as governor or president, looking at the peculiarity of our politics. And we have Enomona Steven saying, good evening, everyone in the studio and the APC. Okay, should be okay. All right, we have Chris Akion Ayuade saying, another feat by the station of the people, the ever truthful mainland FM. How I wish we had this man called Tinubu, any of his spokesperson like Ajuri Ngilali, Dele Alaki, and
that one has even disappeared. We're not hearing from him again.
They've taken his job now.
Ajuri.
It has now become a
announced appointment.
Is that his job really?
Appointment announcement.
It's really.
It was the one that told us that there will be a broadcast.
All right.
No, I read it from Bayo Nanuga's.
It was the one that tweeted it first. Ajuri.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We have Prince Shola Shudeke saying, good evening, She. Lola. Well, I don't know, but we will be here. On YouTube, we have a number of messages. Joe Tom saying, freedom, equality, and justice. Okay, let's see. We have Henry Inyam saying Tinubu does not understand public policy formulation process. Even as an accountant has claimed he has not done well. We also have John Ayim saying, please how do I get a copy? Okay, we'll look into that. The one ultimate on YouTube is saying our government should go back and read the article he wrote in 2012. He will gain a lot of insight on how to solve the problem of the economy. The article is very brilliant and well elaborated on the pros and cons of subsidy removal. All right, let's go back to taking phone calls. It's still Political Roundtable, mainland 98.3 FM. We have just less than 10 minutes or so to call it a day on the show. It's an extended version of Political Roundtable, really, to dissect the speech of the president and, of course, address all of the issues around the ongoing end bad governance protest in Nigeria. Hello, good evening. Hello?
Hello, good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening. Your name, sir. Where are you calling from?
Yeah, this is Babatunde Ajewole, calling from Ikotu.
Babatunde Ajewole from Ikotu. Please go on, sir.
Yeah. I want to appreciate each and every one of you.
Thank you.
For the good work you are doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, what I want to say is this present government, I think, is enjoying the moment. What is the moment that this government is enjoying? Is that this government, they have again succeeded of divide the people the more. Right? Now, the word given to Bayo Nanuga, that I think is doing it perfectly well. Right? To create more division among
the people.
Right? We see what's happening now. You can discover that we Yorubas, we seem to align with our border. You don't really see much activity, more support towards this particular protest. Right? We are succeeded of rallying around traditional rulers, the religious leaders. As you can see now, when we have some people are saying they want to carry over, they want to. At the same time, the people of Eastern extraction, they are equally falling into this particular level.
But Ajewale, Babatunde, the president addressed that issue of ethnicity and tribalism, and he actually said that, look, the security operatives would deal with anybody promoting.
And even Lagos state government reacted.
I think even the governor also reacted to all these threats against Igbos in Lagos.
I think he's saying what this man is saying is different.
No,
what he's saying is different.
Yes, I'm with you.
In fact, if we want to go by that statement of the president,
yes,
he's supposed to kind of deal with
Bayo Ononuga. It's okay.
Yes. It is that statement of Bayo Ononuga, and it's a purposeful assignment given to Bayo Ononuga.
You can't be too sure about that.
Given to Bayo Ononuga by who?
Yeah.
By who? Who gave you the assignment?
Bayo Ononuga is a mouthpiece of the president.
Okay, so Tinubu told him to divide Nigeria.
He's a mouthpiece. Now, when Bayo Ononuga wants to react to this protest, he was coming from the angle of IPOB, Igbo extraction,
what he said basically was Obi and his supporters. Well, maybe could have been interpreted as.
He made mention of IPOB.
IPOB is not Igbo now.
Okay, well, thank you so much about it.
I think there's a point.
IPOB is not Igbo.
I think there's a point he made that we have overlooked.
Yes.
Which is the fact that the Yorubas have been largely ambivalent as far as this issue is concerned. In fact, some of them have come out openly to say you cannot carry this protest against our sons.
And there are quite a number of Yorubas who have also protested.
But the point he's making is that you know that the Yorubas, if you want to talk about people who fought for the freedom of this country, they have been in the forefront. You can't deny them that. From Obafemi Awolowo, Alawa Kabashorun, Femi Fanika, Femi Fan. You understand? And then all of a sudden, you understand? And look, the danger is that we live in a country where leaders emerge from different parts. Tomorrow, what if a bad leader emerges from Southeast, and then they begin to cry again? Are they going to be able to have the moral right to do that? Look at what we've been talking about in this country. Have you realized that almost everybody, especially the big time pastors in Nigeria, who were shouting about Buhari coming to Islamize Nigeria, Buhari government is the worst. This government, Nigerians have witnessed more hardship under this government. Do you hear anything from them?
Same thing happened in the north.
People have also said that during Buhari too, the northerners.
No protest. The insecurity was at the height.
The northerners protested in the north. They shouted.
Even northerners were saying
in fact,
Shehu Sani was even saying it. That's what Shehu Sani has been saying.
That is Shehu Sani's opinion. The facts, we have the facts. And I can debunk that fact. I have evidence to show so many places in the north where Buhari was randomly condemned by the northerners, that the Fed was under him.
Maybe not in the form of this kind of protest.
Yes, not
because when we had NSAS, I remember that there was no protest in the north.
No, there were protests in the north.
NSAS.
There were protests, except your definition of north is only in Katsina.
No, when we say we talk about core north now.
There were protests everywhere in the north.
I disagree, sir.
Oh God, go and check.
Not as fierce as what we had
again,
in the south.
I think this conversation has to.
Kaduna, there were protests in Jos.
But I think we should be careful really to go the ethnic line.
No, he was saying. No, I'm just saying that he said some prominent pastors who are from the south or the urban.
No, I'm not saying. I didn't mean. I said prominent pastors who condemned Buhari regime as the worst in the country are no longer talking.
Well, we will assume that that's their right not to talk now, but it's questionable, really.
Yes,
double standard.
And some of these things, and if you go by it, some of these things happens just like everywhere.
Everywhere.
In every
People pick and choose when to speak out. People are even surprised that Professor Oleshoyinka spoke today.
Yes. So it happens everywhere. You have an Igbo man, and that's why he said
I have a message to quickly sort out, and that's from Chris Akianyuade, who is saying there's a part of his message I left out. How I wish we had this man called Tinubu or any of his spokesmen like Ijiri Ngilali, Dele Alaki Obaronga in the studio, juxtaposing this article with the inhumane government APC, inhumane government APC with Tinubu is running.
Go get one of them.
Okay. Well,
I will play this message.
The earlier we say in final no, the better. Long live the ever-suffering Nigerian masses. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We move. This is Akin the Great from Ojodubeg. I think I've been able to do justice to your message. We have to leave the studio now. But your final take on the show this evening. We've had a long run, really, and I think we've been able to really touch on all of the issues around the protest and the address by the president today. But your final take on the show this evening.
So, democracy demands vigilance.
Okay,
vigilance from the people. That is the price we pay for democracy. Constantly standing and reviewing the activities of those who have elected into offices to serve us. Like I've always said, we elect them to solve problems. They become the problems that we have to solve. Now, what is happening right now in the country, and Mr. President and all the governors in the states should take note that this protest is not the work of the opposition politicians. This is a reaction to the pains that Nigerians are going through. And as long as they are focused on politics alone by saying some people who lost the election are sole losers and they want sponsoring the election, they miss the real issue, which is that the policies that this government introduced are the things that are responsible for the pains the people are going through. And what the people are simply saying is, ease our pain by tweaking these policies. You know, it's like what happened in the Bible. David, of course, built the temple. The people suffered so much under him. And when Solomon, when his son Rehoboam came, they went to him and said, under your father, we suffered so much. Ease our pain. And he said, well, where you got a stick from my father, I will give you scorpion. This is exactly what is going on. And Nigerians deserve more than what they are getting.
So after the stick, you think they should get some ice cream instead of scorpion?
When you are looking for an ice cream, you do not go to a hardware shop.
You go to where they sell it.
You go to where they sell it. And what we are seeing so far is hardware.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Curtis Ariba, for your brilliant submission on the show today. Olalekon, your final take on the show.
Nigeria will be great again.
Okay. Thank you so much. Nigeria will be great again. I think I like that aspect of the conversation. Thank you so much, Mr. Curtis Ariba. Thank you, Olalekon. And thank you to everyone who stayed with us all through the show. Those that sent in messages on Facebook and YouTube. And for every of our callers this evening, and for those that tried to call in that were not able to pick your call, we're really very sorry. But this is where we call it today on the show, Political Roundtable, Mainland 98.3 FM. Let's do this again next week.